welcome to this live stream. Hi, Panda. So this is going to be a very, very heavy episode. I want to say that right away because we are going to be talking about the very dark side of fandom, fans becoming stalkers, fans becoming killers, fans attempting to kill, fans, all this stuff. So it's really, really heavy. So please pay attention to the trigger warnings that I have scrolling on the bottom. I will give those out right now for the podcast side. Trigger warning for stalking, murder, attempted murder, suicide, and sexual assault. So if that's triggering for you at all, you probably don't want to listen to this, but please listen to the first few minutes of this until after we say what we're into, because I do have something important to announce that also will go for the podcast episode and not just for the live stream. So I'll do that first. I have a couple of announcements before I have my panelists introduce themselves. So number one, as we all know, the world is it's a very hard time right now, to say the least. I mean, that's putting it mildly. And I have put together a Google Doc with places to donate for both the Ukraine and LGBTQIA plus organizations. I'm putting that in the comments right now. And it will be in the show notes for people listening to the podcast episode. So please go there, help you can. There's also other things, like there's a whole thing of writing letters as well. If you're not able to make donations, writing letters to trans youth as well. So there's that project that ends on March 4th, which is the day this drops. So I apologize. I'll have this on social media too. But for at least the first 10 people, I may expand this, who donate anything, any dollar amount. I don't care if it's $1, any dollar amount. DM the podcast on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook and let us with proof of your donation, and you can get a free podcast sticker. It can be our regular podcast logo, our horror logo, our It's a Christian Effing Bale thing, it's a fanfic thing, even ones that we haven't up there yet. I have a meeting with our producer tomorrow, so I'll see if there's going to be other ones in there, but you'll get a sticker for that and our appreciation. Because I know it's hard to feel like, I don't know what to do, and you're kind of stuck, like, what do I do? So this is one thing that you can do, and we wanted to share it with people and also give you a little tiny bit of an incentive to do it. I know our listeners are good people, but I just wanted to do this as well. So that will be going on until we get to the first 10. I might expand it, like I said, so no time limit on that. But once again, check the show notes if you're not watching this live. But that link there, Panda, who's watching live, or anyone that jumps in later and watches, you can see that link in the live chat. Okay, and then the other announcement before I get to our thing about Patreon. Sorry, I have so many things to say here, but a couple of things. So everybody knows I am a huge Finn Wittrock fan. I'm not a Finn Wittrock fan to the extent of the fans that we've been researching, okay? I want to put that out there. My quote-unquote obsession is not an obsession, okay, comparatively. I just had to say that.
I'm so glad that you went ahead and pointed that out.
I will tell you, if there's anything this has done, it's make me feel much, much better about
me too.
being a fan, and also made me wonder if we should rethink the tagline for It's a Phantom.
What do you mean?
The obsession.
Oh, the obsession part? Yeah.
I'm just kidding, of course.
We are not like to this level. But anyway, on a serious note about that. So tomorrow, so this is only for the live streamers since this is tomorrow, a very good account that if you are a fan of Finn Wittrock, you really need to follow them. And that is Finn Wittrock Source. They are on Twitter and Instagram. And they are holding a live watch party tomorrow starting at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So that's 12 Mountain, 1 Central, 2 Eastern, on their Instagram page, which is Finn Wittrock Source, all one word. If you don't know how to spell Finn Wittrock, it's FINNWITTROCK and Source. So all one word there. And it'll be just a fun thing. As you know, A Mouthful of Air is one of my favorite movies from the last year. Means a heck of a lot to me. So I will definitely be there, and I hope to virtually see some of you there. And it's a great account. They retweeted the episode that I was on my streaming bubble. talking about Finn Whitrock and really appreciated that. I know Jen was beside herself about that. So I know that is her most popular episode right now and was even before that happened. So see, it's good to be a fan of Finn. It to a healthy level. I just say again, since we were talking about this, it's weird. I'm like, okay, gotta qualify this. And then lastly, sorry, I know so many announcements, but lastly, if you want to support the show and keep us doing what we're doing these live streams, all that jazz, head on over to our Patreon page and support us for as little as $3 a month. So you can go to the show notes or our link tree and you'll find it there. We have a rent episode up. We are recording our very first American Horror Story bonus episode on Friday with Susie's going to be there. Jen is going to be there. Aaron A is going to be there. And Meg is going to Meg is going to be there.
I'll be there, mispronounce Finn Whitrock's name, and leave.
He's not even in the first 2 seasons, but you can do it.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. Has that made any difference to me in talking about this poor man?
You will love it. You will love the first 2 seasons. They're right up Meg's alley. But we are going to have a brand new panelist on those, Chrissy, who was part of our horror trivia. So she's going to be on those bonus episodes. So those will be a ton of fun. Okay, now we can get to introducing everybody and telling me what you're into right now. I feel like I've talked enough already for the whole episode. So, Carla, what are you into right now?
Oh, please don't dare us.
Oh, no, never mind.
Over. Instant regret. But what I will tell you, though, what I am into this show called Single Drunk Female, which I started watching on Hulu. It is a hoot. It's a delight. And as the title says, it's about a young woman who is an alcoholic, and you watch her hit rock bottom and then go to rehab and try to live her life through the aftermath, and especially through the aftermath, including her mom, who is played by Ali Sheedy very nicely, but sometimes you want to just push her into a wall. Be like, get out of my way. I will parent your child for you. I will do this instead. And Ian Gomez is in it. He's wonderful as well. But yes, it's a great show. You should check it out. And also, just when I'm feeling too happy about watching Single Drunk Female, I've also started watching Euphoria just so I can feel really, really down about everything in life.
That show, oh my gosh. I haven't watched the next season because we're going to be covering Euphoria this summer. And so I'm saving it because I don't want to dive into the second season and get depressed again, because that show is so flippin' depressing.
It is. I watched an episode and a half and I'm like, oh my goodness. Are the kids all right? I don't think they are.
The kids are not all right.
No, I've not seen like a single episode of this series, but all I can gather is everything is very spaghettios all around.
Everything is awful.
It's awful. So good, but it's just like
it's a lot.
I don't know. I think, Aaron, with all the lighthearted episodes that you're doing now and in the near future, I think absolutely Euphoria is just the nice grounding show that you need.
Well, it was a listener request that we cover this show, and it makes sense. But yes, it's really good. Very lighthearted.
It's excellent, but my God,
I know. I'm like, that's why I'm not watching the second season yet, because I'm like, I can't put myself through that again. I'm gonna have to watch the first season again to refresh my memory. But I'm like, I'm saving that. I'm waiting. It's been a heavy enough week for me already for podcast prep. Yeah. So yeah. So Meg, what are you into?
I am into anything that is not Chip and Joanna Gaines at the moment. And farmhouse Ray Dunn stuff. Like, okay, I'm remodeling my kitchen and everything is like, why do you have to have butter written on your butter dish? Like, why does it have to say potatoes? Like, do you not?
That's a good question.
I don't understand why your bread thing has to say bread on it. Like,
No, I vote that we change all of those to characters from your favorite TV show, and you have a butter dish called Castiel, and you have, like plain
No, the
white
butter
bread.
dish should be called Dean. This butter's a lubricant.
Yes, there you go. There you go. And for your plain white starches, you can call them all Sam.
Or the rest of the cast. But in reality, and I know Carlos talked about it, but I haven't been on here in a little bit. The cleaning lady on Fox is just fantastic. I love it so much. I like complaining about how much I hate husbands on the show. And I know Carlos talked about it a lot, but it's basically about a mom who is undocumented in America, and she's from Cambodia. She's a doctor in Cambodia, but she has to work as a cleaning lady because she's undocumented here in the U.S. And she's staying here because her son is terminally ill and needs life-saving treatment. And it's just, she winds up working for the mafia. And I read an article saying that this isn't a mob romance. And I was like, you are wrong. I never usually tell people that they're watching something incorrectly, but this woman was so very incorrect. And like, I sent the article to Carla. And the next episode, she was proven wrong. Anyway, that's it. I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm very tired, you guys. I have no more control. Anyone want to come clean out my kitchen?
Not after that picture you shared.
I think it was that was probably there when we moved in 11 years ago.
Yeah, it wasn't you who left tomato juice in the can.
Yeah.
It was bad. If you guys know, tomato juice is acidic, and eventually it will eat through your can.
That sounded
very.
No,
That was
listen,
my
I had a
face.
very traumatizing experience today with a cream cheese that turned on me extremely.
No.
Oh no.
Listen, I'm gonna out myself that I do not clean my fridge often. It was in there since September.
That reminds me. See, this is what's wrong. Y'all don't live in Wisconsin because our dairy lasts forever.
Yeah.
It
wasn't cream cheese anymore. It was scream cheese, and I was traumatized.
That's like when I put butter when we were down in Florida. I put butter on the counter for soft butter because we do that here in Wisconsin.
We do that here.
And you can't do that here because it goes
in
rancid
one
immediately.
day. It turned in one day. Like
even though I warned her and
took
she
it
said,
out.
No, it's just gonna stay here soft. And I'm like, it's Florida. It doesn't do that.
We took it out in the morning. By the evening, it was dead. And I was like, that's probably because it's 6 weeks old before it even gets to Florida.
Anyway.
This counts as a tangent on the bingo card, by the way.
It was
We're getting
a
as much
slippery slope.
As much joy as we can now.
Yeah, exactly. I know. We have to put in some levity in this one, honestly.
What I'm here for.
Yeah. So Susie, other than rotten cream cheese, what are you into right now?
Oh my gosh, y'all. Let me tell you something. It has been a hot minute since I've been on this lovely recording space with all you lovely people, and I'm going to sound like a billboard for this show, and I will gladly do so. So I had a chance to recently to this Thursday I got a chance to see the final dress rehearsal for the Shining opera that's here in Denver. And let me tell you, friends, if you're a fan of theater, if you're a fan of fabulous costumes, if you're a fan, I don't even if you're not a fan of opera, because I my only experience with opera was Phantom of the Opera. So that was my only I went into this thinking, oh, it's going to be in German or French or some other language. And I'm just going to be like, okay, but the colors are pretty. No, it's all in English. And y'all, this is my first time seeing live theater since the Panda Express, and let me tell you, it was the most enjoyable time that I've had. The sets were freaking gorgeous. The voices of all the cast members just coming at you. You're like, ah, yes, sing to me. And the cast, oh my god, everyone involved did such a great job. Such a great job. and they executed like the horror moments on stage like perfectly, and it was just like, oh yeah, it was oh, it's so good, it's so good. Yeah, it I can talk about it now because today is this first show. But it's, if you're in Denver, or just make a trip to Denver, have a fun time. It's here until like the mid-March, so just
Yeah,
come
come
on,
visit
come watch
Susie.
it. Yeah.
No, never mind. I shouldn't say come visit. Susie and I was the topic we're talking about. Scratch that.
Booking
No,
the flight.
Unless we know you and we invite you.
yeah.
This is
Yeah,
the wrong episode
I
to
know.
invite people to your house.
Sorry, Susie.
No, you're fine. No, but the show opens today. It's there also March 1st, 3rd, 4th, and 6th. And if you can, like if you're in Denver, go see it. It is just so great. So great. I love it. It's, oh my God. Yes. Yes to theater. I would
That-
also like to note that I am not like exposed below this frame. There is a shirt. Just saying. Just saying. In case anyone was
See your
wondering.
sleeves.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In case
Did
anyone
you
was
think that
wondering.
we thought you were just wearing like these little cap sleeves and then just titties?
No, I didn't want anyone to think that like the
Yes.
bazongas were out and about. They're tethered.
Especially
But
not in this episode.
Just pull the neckline down and then just let them rest on top. It'd be amazing.
It's so
Shelve it.
liberating.
I'll just do this so that like it's so there's not like it doesn't look like I'm naked.
But don't
do
do that
that.
because
I'll just
the
lift.
boob sweat could ruin your
No,
shirt.
I, on the other hand, am only wearing a shirt that goes down to here, and everything below is just hanging
Yeah.
loose.
Like anything
Okay,
below my
okay, let's
hair
stop
is
this now. This is not the right
This is the
episode.
crappiest top. No pants.
Okay, I'm stopping us before everybody gets themselves into some trouble.
It's like I
here.
noticed Panda hasn't said anything again.
Nobody has. We have some
Nobody
people
has.
joined, and someone joined, and then when you were talking about all that, they left.
They're like, I was here for some dark shit. Why are these bitches talking about their tits?
Okay.
We'll get serious, I
so-
promise.
Yeah, okay.
Tangent
So
number 2.
I love opera. So I was really wondering about that one when I kept seeing the commercials on. I love opera, even when I don't understand a word.
Yum.
I think opera is something that you either love or don't love. I am moved to tears by almost every opera I've been to. And I've been wondering about that one because I've been seeing the ads, and I'll be frank, I've rolled my eyes every time I've seen the ads. But
No.
Panda's still here laughing.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I've been I went to see it through like the aid of my school. My school was given tickets for students to go, and it, oh my God, and we got to do a tech talk with all the technical crew afterwards as well.
That's awesome.
And it was like so amazing to hear, because they like the opera was originally the production is originally from Minnesota, so they had the set shipped over from there, and they like worked with the folks who from Minnesota, with also the technical crew from Minnesota to make this happen. And they've been trying to do this since before the pandemic, and like it's a whole thing. And yeah, it is awesome to see. Also, I found out that apparently like the Ellie Calkins Opera House has like a little subtitle thing built into your seat so that you know what's going on. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah, I've been there before, and I remember
Yeah.
that. Yeah. I mean, I haven't been there in forever, but yeah, my mom, who used to work in immigration law, she was a paralegal, and they helped a lot of people who were opera performers or who worked behind the scenes, so they'd get like a lot of like free tickets and stuff, which was so awesome. So yeah, okay. Well, this is Erin. What I'm into is I watched this fun little thriller that's on Hulu called No Exit. And it's all about a woman who, Darby, who she is in rehab. You get the feeling it's like one of her like fifth, sixth, you don't know how many times she's been in there. And she's in there as they said, you either go to jail or you go to rehab. So she chose rehab. She finds out that her mom had an aneurysm, a brain aneurysm, is in the hospital, and she can't leave. And some of the people don't even believe that this really happened. So she escapes, steals a car, is driving through to try to get to Salt Lake City. There's a huge snowstorm. So she gets trapped in a visitor center they opened up, and she finds out there's a girl who's been kidnapped and is in a van tied up, and she's trying to figure out who it is who kidnapped her and how to rescue her. And when you don't have cell phone service, and she's there with 4 other people, so trying to figure it out. So it's a lot of twists and turns. And the acting is really, really good. The lead, Havana Rose Liu, is really good. And it also features Dennis Haysbert, who I have to say, and I know, I know he's more than just the Allstate commercials. I know this, but when you're dealing with a movie where there are so many cars and you're stranded, why couldn't he just once say, "You're in good hands"? And he was playing a Marine, an ex-Marine. He could have said, "You're in good hands with me." I mean, it could have just peppered it in there. I think it should be in all of his contracts that you have to.
It tells me it tells me how tired I am. I'm like, is that the Mayhem guy or is that the minor league?
He was God in Lucifer. What are you talking about?
There we go. That's
Yeah.
how I know I'm
He's
completely
Datsifer.
exhausted because I'm just like, who's that?
You're in,
Yeah.
I mean,
yes,
and
it's
he has the most.
God.
But the
You know, he has
Mayhem
the
guy
most
sounds like he
recognizable
would
voice
fit
in the world.
also.
He has
Yeah.
such a
I haven't
recognizable
seen-
voice.
I haven't
What's
seen
the
that
name?
movie, but it would be funny, like if at a certain point he goes, "Only God can help us now," and just winks.
That
Except
would have
then
been a good.
It would be
too,
hilarious
but-
if God could help us, and then Morgan Freeman comes down.
And then he
James
says,
Earl
"You're in
Jones,
good
and they have a
hands."
voice off.
And then he says, "You're in good hands now." And
The movie budget could have been
And that's
paid
the end of the
for
movie.
right there.
That's what
just-
you mean, because you know everything's gonna be all right from that point on. I mean, you have like 2
just-
gods and James
Weird.
Earl Jones for no good reason. End scene. We're
They
good.
have Mufasa.
You don't need.
Just-
You have Mufasa.
we are 22 minutes into this episode. We haven't gotten to the subject yet. Okay, so we're gonna start now.
Take a hard turn now.
Okay, so once again, I'm going to give you the warning again for people who just listened to this beginning 22 minutes of an episode, really. Once again, content warning for stalking, murder, attempted murder, suicide, and sexual assault will be in here as well. So if any of those are triggering, please skip this episode. I totally understand skipping this one. This is a heavy one. I have to tell you on a personal note, this week of podcast prep, oh my gosh, was so hard. I've been watching Married with Children to get through it all because we're covering that show later. So it is podcast prep, but I'm like, I have got to lighten it because I'm this. And then I was talking to an author who wrote a book about Hitler. And so having both of those, especially with what's going on right now, whew, tell you, heavy
Nuts.
week. Yeah, heavy week of podcast prep. So we're going to get into this subject now. And everyone out there, I think this will make you feel really good about your what you are as a fan, because it certainly made me feel good about the way
Or
I
it might make you reflect and maybe take a
That's
step
right.
back.
And say, if you're
In which
listening
case-
to this and you're just like, oh, I kind of do that.
Or
Maybe
you're like, what? That's not so bad.
felt.
if this doesn't make you feel good as a fan, then you probably shouldn't feel good about your fandom levels. Just say it.
Yes. So the first thing we're going to start off with before we get into the cases where fans have killed celebrities or attempted to kill celebrities, and there's quite a few of those. It's very terrifying. We're going to first talk about if you think there is a hard line in the sand of when you cross that line from becoming just a good-natured fan to something that could become dangerous down the line. Carla?
I think that it's, well, there are so many factors that go into it, but I think that one really telling one is how much of your mental energy are you devoting to this person. And if it's like most of the day, then that's too much. If it's even not most of the day, but it's really intense and it causes you to lose sight of the real things in your life, it's too much. If you plan everything around what this person does, it's too much. If you if when you are planning, like an event where you might run into them in person, and you're going into it with the mentality that you know them, or that you're destined to be something to them more than just a fan and artist relationship, it's too much. So there are, and there are a lot of things to consider in here too, because there's also the question of mental health, and are you addressing your mental health apart from just this? But this could be like the sign for you that maybe you need to go talk to somebody, and just say, look, I am having these constant intrusive thoughts about this person. I devote all of my time and money and attention to them, um, because it's frankly, the simplest thing to say, it's not realistic to expect that you will have a relationship with this person that you're a fan of, just because you think that you have compatible personalities. Or if you think it's destined, then that's a whole other level of worry, and that's something that's really very worrisome, because that goes even beyond the rationalization of it, of this assumed relationship. But we've talked about, um, oh gosh, what is it called? The thing with the,
Parasocial.
thank you, yes, because there's parasocial relationships with celebrities, and then there's this, and the parasocial relationship thing can be part of it, even, like if you think that everything that they tweet, that it's like an invitation for you to speak to them very familiarly. It's not, like, unless you actually know them, and they have not just not intimated, but specifically said, hey, we're pals and you can talk to me like this. It's not directed at you. It's directed at like all the millions of people that are receiving. So yeah, like there are a lot of things, but and I haven't even gotten into the physical aspect of it, which is that, if you're near them and you feel like you can touch them, like you're welcome to, like uh that's a real problem. And it's a real problem whether it's a celebrity or not, like whomever it is that there's an obsession with. Consent is everything in every realm, absolutely. But that question of, like, can you even distinguish between reality and what you think is happening? And that's really something that, there's nobody walking around with like a marker on their head that says, having uh delusions of a relationship with a performer. And it's so hard, and it's so I can't imagine being somebody in the public eye like that, and not always knowing, thinking, most of my fans probably won't want to stalk me and make me theirs, or what, in whatever way they feel that is, but maybe one or two might. And how does that color your interactions with fans? So yeah.
Yeah, I think it would just, that's what I would, oh my gosh, I would hate to be famous. Like, oh my gosh, I just, ugh. So Meg.
Yeah, and I agree a lot with what Carla was saying there. I think once your relationship, how your one-sided relationship or whatever you are imagining starts to impact your actual life, like your relationships with people around you, your ability to maintain those relationships and maintain a job, maintain other hobbies, maintain yourself. Once that's really impacted, then I think that's goes past that realm, because it's hard to draw like this is a hard line in the sand, because especially with, and we'll talk about social media, I know, but especially with that access that people have to celebrities, and it's gone from celebrities having a public persona for interviews and like press junkets to having a whole public persona on social media, and how it makes it so much easier for people to feel like they know someone. And that's where I don't think parasocial relationships are inherently bad at all. I think you can enjoy a parasocial relationship with a celebrity. And as long as you understand that that's what it is, as long as it's understood that this is not like this celebrity, just because they retweet you or they interact with you on social media or anything like that, does not necessarily mean that you guys are having a relationship. You don't know that celebrity. You know that public face that celebrity is putting on. And as genuine as a lot of celebrities like to seem to us, they're not disingenuous, but it's a public persona. It's not who they are privately and personally. And no matter how well you know their public persona, you don't know who they are as a person privately. But yeah, I think social media has really kind of clouded that line in the sand. It's really kind of moved it forward. But I guess a good example. So if you see that a celebrity's house for sale and there's an article about it and you're like, oh, cool, and you want to look, or Architectural Digest is showing pictures of your favorite celeb's house and you want to go look at them, absolutely. Going and finding their tax records, not cool. Less cool, sharing those tax records with their actual signature and their actual address on the internet. Like, just because it's technically public information doesn't mean that it's your right to dig that information up and then share it. Because even if you're not a crazy stalker, and if you're sharing someone's public information or their home address, you don't know who's going to see that. Although I will argue that if you're digging up someone's home address in the public records, there are deeper problems. But that's kind of one of those things, like enjoying someone and wanting to like see the window of their lives that they're giving you, fine. Trying to subvert that or get around that to get into their private lives, not cool. I guess that's kind of where my line in the sand. And yeah, Carla really brought a lot of that home.
Yeah, no,
brought it home for me.
Susie, you need to add to that one?
Yeah, no, I think Carla and Mike have put it together very succinctly that that when you do start to kind of like disassociate from the reality around you and confuse fiction for reality and start to like really believe in it and like want to act it out, then that's where it's kind of like you need to take a step back, buddy, and just like separate yourself from this. Think it out, think it through. Don't jump off that diving board, friend. Don't do it. Just take a step back. I think it's also like it's also important to like if anyone ever does find themselves going down that path, and like, or even if they think someone else is, maybe have a talk with either them or yourself and go, hey, how would you feel if someone else was doing this to your loved one? If they were doing these things, if they were looking up let's say someone was looking up your mom's tax records, or someone was looking up your grandma's address and putting it out on the internet for people to see, or actively following her like day-to-day activities. And if you go, oh, that's not okay, then that's when you, because it is like for celebrities especially, it is so easy to just like, due to their like, because of their fame, to like put them on this pedestal and at times forget that they're human, forget that they have like human emotions, human feelings. They laugh and cry just like us, although they're on like a more like they're on a higher level of fame most likely than most of us are. But it's still important to remember that like they're human and they are entitled to their space and their privacy. And if any one of them like verbalizes and says, hey, you crossed this boundary, please stop, then respect that. respect their space, respect what they've said, and just like take a step back and just.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think tying up so much of your identity in another person, celebrity or not, is super unhealthy, but it's so much easier for people to see a celebrity and just be like, well, they're talking to me. They must, like, I identify so much with what they're saying. And then once you don't have any identity outside of who this celebrity is, that's when I think it gets to be pretty dangerous for you, for your mental health, frankly. And yeah, that's all. I don't have any other ways to end that sentence. So
Yeah.
Except to end it.
I tried, damn it.
No, that was fine. Yeah. And I think I think that's very true. What Susie said is, I think people forget that celebrities are people too. I mean, we really do. They just think because you see somebody on the big screen, small screen, on the stage, wherever you see them, that you know them, and you don't really know them, and you don't own them. I think that's the big thing, is I think sometimes fans think they own the celebrity, and the celebrity should be there for them, and their job is to entertain them and to be there for their fans. And while there might be events like that, like conventions or stuff like that, that's one thing. But I even think, personally, I think it's very rude to go up to a celebrity when they're out having dinner with their family. I think, or, I've heard of people do that in the bathroom, like going up to a celebrity when they're going to the bathroom. That's just, I mean, you would not do that to someone you did not know. That I wouldn't even want you to do that to me if you knew me, okay? I mean, it's just human decency. It's just human decency, but that's lost because the person is a celebrity. So people just think, oh, well, that they've signed up for this, so they have to know that their privacy. They're not entitled to that at all. That's why when celebrities are like, in the wild, so to speak, as we said before, they're, just out doing normal, regular, everyday people things. And people go up to them and ask for a picture, an autograph, and the celebrity says no. And then those people get pissed. Frankly, you're the asshole in that situation, because that celebrity is entitled to be a regular person, have a normal life, especially if they're with their kids or their loved one who doesn't want anything to do with this. Yeah, it's like, and I know that's not at the same level as stalking, but to me, it's really just, that's crossing a line right there where you should not be doing that. And I know, we'll talk about social media here in a bit, because social media has definitely made that worse, because people feel like they can see the celebrity. And there is that thing of, if a famous person likes your tweet, it is this endorphin rush. It is. It just is. I'm not going to lie. I mean, and there are people that I know that are like, in the business, or you'll see even those people get endorphin rushes when certain other people like certain things or talk to them. So it's just, that's a human thing to get that endorphin rush. That's very natural. But if you then turn that into, oh, well, that means this person's my friend now, and I know them, and that means that, we're like buddy, then that's also when it crosses the line. Yeah, Panda, the bathroom. This is actually a George Clooney story.
No way.
No,
This
there's
is
a
from a long time ago. And I'm sure it happens like hundreds of different times, but
Yeah.
the story that I heard was, and it was actually, I was in Pasadena in the 90s, and this was during ER, and I was at this very good, very nice, fancy restaurant out there. And I guess George Clooney would go there sometimes. And one of the people at the table actually was the person who did this. And he wanted to be an actor, and he saw George Clooney in the bathroom. And he said, so do you have any advice for actors who are, and George Clooney just looked at him and said, get out. Get out of it. Get out of the business. He was saying get out of the business, but he was
And
probably
the
also
bathroom.
thinking, F you,
Yeah.
I'm trying to pee. Get the hell away from me.
Well, and to be clear, like, if you are like walking around and you see a celebrity in the wild, it is it's a normal reaction to get very excited to
Oh,
see
yeah, I have
somebody.
too.
Like, that's a normal reaction. But yeah, when they're trying to eat dinner and you're just like, hey, what you doing? And like snag their napkin and put it in your purse. That's not a normal reaction, guys. Just like grab their glass and like, I'm gonna make a clone of you. That's not cool. I feel like I shouldn't have to tell people that. But I have heard of people who have wanted, like, I've heard of people who have dug Kleenexes
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
out of trash to get DNA. Like, who? I cannot think of anybody that I'm a big enough fan of to be like, yeah, I want your snot. Give me that mucus, baby.
I wouldn't even want that from someone I loved and cared.
Right? Like, this is the last thing my grandma tries to give me. I'm like, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Love
No,
you.
there's no snot in the world like that's worth me
that.
like digging through the trash to like get a like. No, I'm sorry, not even Finn Wicrock himself is
No.
worth me like digging in there
No way.
and just like look at no.
I'm
no,
sorry, not
no,
even to
no.
solve a crime am I digging
Not
through the
no,
trash
not even.
to get
Not
Kleenex.
even. You would grab one of those like arm grabber thingies, you know, the extendable ones, like
I know.
make sense to, like for crime purposes, but just like in a to solve
Yeah.
a crime, not to commit one. just say it.
wanting to hug a celebrity that you see on the street,
Natural reaction.
normal reaction ish.
Doing
Actually
it?
doing it
Yeah, it's not
without
okay.
being like, hey, even with that's the thing is like I have seen celebrities on the street and I saw one and I was like, hey, can I get a picture with you? Because it was like the third time he'd circled my hotel and I was like, this guy, he clearly wants a picture with me.
Clearly. That's what he was doing. He's like, what is she gonna ask me?
Like, at this point, I've seen you like 4 times today. Can we just take a picture and then maybe you can go off into your
Because
world?
now you're just doing him a favor.
Right? Like, and guess what? We took a picture and never saw him again.
See proof right there.
But I think I don't know. I don't think I could be like, hey, I see you like Eggs Benedict. Me too, besties. Like, I don't.
Yeah. No, like here's another bathroom one. Like Gwendolyn Christie, who plays Phasma in like the new trilogy series of Star Wars, and who also played Brienne of Tarth in Game of Thrones. She said she was at a restaurant with her husband, and she went to the bathroom, and she's peeing, doing her business as one does, and just like from underneath the stall, like a shaky arm just goes, picture please.
No.
And she was like, no.
See, that's not normal.
Like,
You guys.
no, like no. If you see
that?
them in the wild and you're like, oh, that's Tom
My-
Hiddleston, looking good, my guy.
Just
I'm not gonna like
not
run
a
over
good
there
time.
and be like,
My only celebrity bathroom story was when I asked Chris Messina to get out of my way so I could go to the bathroom because he was standing in the hallway where the bathroom was. I was at a screening of his movies where he was doing a Q&A after, and I had to go to the bathroom, obviously. And he was out in the little lobby area waiting while people were watching the movie. And I was just like, oh, hi, it's nice to meet you and everything. Because we're the only like 3 people in the lobby. It'd be rude to ignore the man. And then and he was just like, oh hi. He was in the way. He was in the way of the hallway. So he's like, oh hi, nice to meet you. And I was like, that's great. Can you please move? I have to go to the bathroom.
Meg's like,
like,
get out of the way, Chris.
All these-
you're like, listen,
all these
Mother
famous
Nature's
men
calling,
are
move.
drawn to me.
He's like, don't you want to have a conversation? Meg's like, get out of the way. I have to pee.
Wait, we'll talk.
follows you
We'll
in the
talk to my mom. We'll talk to my
No.
mom after
You're
We're
like,
not gonna
you're
tell
like,
that
I've
story.
drunk 3
No.
sippy gulps throughout the course of this movie. I gotta go to number 1 now. So move.
Meg pushes
Sir.
him out of the way after
just throw an elbow.
That's funny. Yeah. So, yeah, there's a time and a place. I mean, I was telling on our Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episode that I saw James Avery once in Pasadena, and I was outside of a cheesecake factory waiting to get in, and he walks by with his 2 pugs walking him, and it was so exciting. He was like 2 feet from me, and I'm like, oh, it's James Avery. Oh, look, it's Uncle Phil. And I didn't say anything, though. I didn't go up to him because I'm like, he's obviously doesn't want people to come up and be like, hey, hi, I love you.
I feel like you'd be more likely to be like, hey, can I pet your pugs? And like
That's what
not
I wanted
even
to
not
do.
even
That would be
acknowledge
me.
him
It's
at
like-
all. You would just be like, oh my god, I love your puggies, and then like deuces.
Yeah.
No, we're like, who are you again? Fresh Prince of what?
That's happened to me with Zach Galifianakis. I had no idea who he was until my husband
I
told me
think I
later.
remember you told me that. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there are people I'm like, I don't know who this.
Well, this was right before The Hangover came out, so this was right before he like really blew up. He was doing a show, and we ran into him at a bar, and my husband took a picture, and we were just chatting with him for like an hour, and then I was like, "Who is that guy?" And Marty's just like, and then we saw The Hangover, and it's like, "Oh, hey, I know him."
I always say to people, we're supernatural people. That's how most of us met, except for Mini Project, of course. But I always told people, because people would be like, oh, Misha Collins is so big. I'm like, you know what? Nobody knows who he is outside of the suit. Because I've asked people and they're like, who?
Yeah.
And the same with Jared and Jensen, too, is people don't necessarily, they might know him from other things. But so people that we think are huge and big and everybody should know, not everybody does. So
That's the level of like famous I would want, though. I would like to have some people who like me, but most people not know who I am and make good money.
Niche fame.
yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I want to be like Steve Buscemi, where everyone's like, I know that person, but never remembers their name for the longest time.
No, I'd want to be like Doug Jones. Like in every movie he's in, it never looks like him.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
different. And then he's just like undercover.
I want Gary Oldman level. That's what I want. I want Zorg level. This is a really dark episode. Okay. I'm glad we're taking it seriously.
I know we're I know. Well, at least we're adding some levity to it. I think you kind of have to, or this would just be
yes.
hard to talk about.
Would just be in tears.
Yeah, because I know we're gonna get to some really awful stuff here soon,
and then they'll be inappropriate to joke.
Yeah, really inappropriate some of these. So, okay, so I just want to know really quickly. We don't have to dive into this too deep since we're already like 47 minutes into this episode. We're barely scratched the surface here. But Carla, do you think celebrities owe their fans anything?
Yes. I think celebrities owe their fan a good product. They owe them, to put out good music, to write well, to perform well if they're acting, any of those things. Anything of their personal lives, zip. They don't know you a damn thing. If they don't want to share with you their spouse's name, their children's name, like where they were born, they don't have to tell you a damn thing. And guess what? You don't get to be all huffy and puffy about it. Because at the end of the day, your consumption of them ends at whatever it is that you're, watching, reading, listening to. And that's it. Everything else is not fair game. It's not like, oh, well, they signed up for this life. No, they signed up for acting, for singing, for dancing, for whatever thing they want to do. Anything else is strictly on a voluntary basis. And if they don't want to volunteer that information, you butt the hell out.
Amen. Meg, do you think celebrities owe their fans anything?
I was going to honestly say a flat out no. Because they chose a job, not fame. And just because they got famous doing that job doesn't mean that they owe us even a good product. I mean, if people are willing to watch it or listen to it, does it have to be good? No. But I do agree with what Carla said with a good product, because there are some people who are just famous for being famous, and I don't understand why people care about them. I'm not going to name any names, but their father was an attorney during the O.J. Simpson trial.
Oh,
Gee, I wonder who that could be.
Johnny Cochran's children have really taken advantage.
Oh man.
But But yeah, I guess a product, like if your career depends on people liking you, then I can understand the desire to interact with your fans. But they don't owe us anything. They don't owe us their time outside of work, outside of their paid time, to be perfectly honest. Like if they're doing conventions and people are paying to see them, then yeah, put on a good show for the people who are paying to see you, because people spend good money for that. But they don't owe you like a tap dance routine outside of Applebee's. And what are they doing in Applebee's? It's date
They wanted
night.
to bring their tap shoes.
Dance for me, monkey. But like, but I see even in conventions where people get completely inappropriate and out of touch with what they're asking actors to do on stage. Like they have literally said, and I guess like no shade to the person who asked this or whatever, but I saw a video of a Supernatural convention where they literally told Jensen to dance for them. And it's like, he is not a monkey. Like, it breaks my heart. It makes me, it gives me some feelings for these celebrities who do these conventions, who do these photo ops and everything. And that's a gift to fans. They don't have to do that.
Yeah.
They make enough money without doing that they don't have to be doing that. And if people keep asking these inappropriate things of them, and that's not just Supernatural, but in general, if you keep pushing the boundaries of what you can do or what you can ask celebrities to do, they're going to stop, because they don't owe us that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I guess no, they don't owe us shit, except the daughters of a certain lawyer. Give us a...
That's someone I'm never going to have on the podcast now. Jeez. She was on my dream vision board.
What would you even talk
them
about?
on.
What would you talk about? Oh God, what do you do with your life? I don't know. I put my name on stuff.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think PR relationships a lot.
I don't know. I became, well, my sister became the youngest billionaire with her small nest egg of $300 million. I'm like, sorry if you're a fan of these children of this attorney, but I don't understand it. Like, I don't get it.
No. I'm right there with you.
We have lost half.
I can't keep up. I can't keep
Yeah,
up.
Yeah. I'm ready to roast them like marshmallows. Let's go another time.
Yeah, let's do that episode. Carla's like dying in her wine over here.
Roast them like marshmallows and serve them to. Never mind. I was gonna.
Those are the only celebrities that I feel like owe us something, and it's an apology.
Yes.
Oh man.
Like,
So way off
especially if you
topic.
start your business with a $3 million loan and you put out subpar product to
Yeah.
your masses, like what the dickens?
What the dickens? Indeed.
So Susie, other than that person, do you think celebrities owe us anything?
I'm kind of like halfway in between like Carla and Meg. I don't think they owe us anything, but I do think that if a celebrity or a person of a certain level of status is putting work into content, then it doesn't just behoove the fans, it behooves them to actually like put work into it and be professional and respectful and courteous like about it, especially not only to like fans, let's forget about that for a second, but just to the people around them and the people that they work with. Because there are some people in the industry that in the name of it going into a character like to do foolish things.
Things.
Mr. Bledsoe, not
Yeah.
just saying.
Mr.
Like,
Jared Padaletto.
No, guys, we're not
What?
naming names.
Not
Remember
the one I was thinking, but like those two.
the person who played a dean and the brother of a dean.
Their
Jared
peeps are
Padaletto.
very odd. And I don't like.
Sorry.
Yeah,
We're making this way lighter.
we're going personal on this. No,
I'm gonna say I would argue he hasn't put out any good work at all, but that's me.
Which one? Which one?
I mean,
Oh,
pick one.
Take your pick.
pick one. Take your
My
pick.
Six
So-Called
oh-
Life
six
is one of the
oh
best
one.
shows that was ever on television.
Grab the
Not,
fortune
not
teller.
because of him.
And
Well,
just
no, but he was on
the
it.
Wheel of Fortune.
Sorry. Sorry, Susie.
There's
No,
no
you're
wrong answer.
fine.
That lovely Denzel Washington movie. Sorry. Sorry.
I was so prepared
The
for
one
this
about
to
the
be
Texas
very
Ranger.
serious and
It's
dark.
gonna get serious here soon. So sorry, Susie. Did you have
No.
more to add to that before I go?
No,
My
but yeah,
answer?
they don't necessarily owe us anything. Like what Meg said, when they do conventions, when they do like some of them do like events for fans, or like even when they're walking red carpets and they take moments to like be like, oh hey, wait a second, let me go like talk to my fans and sign some things and say hi. Like they don't owe it to you. Like yeah, it's nice that they do that, but what they really went into this like at the entertainment business for is to share like their talents and to express themselves artistically in with the world around them, and to get to work with people in the industry that maybe they've idolized for years, and they're just really excited to be able to do projects with them.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I would
But
argue that like press junkets and stuff like that, that is part of their job.
yeah,
Like if that's their
Yeah,
job,
it's
they're
their job.
working.
Yeah.
And you have to
yeah,
understand that they are working. At conventions, they're working.
yeah.
They're not
Because
just like
they're
hanging out
promoting
with
like
fans.
yeah, they're promoting like their next work, or they're
Yeah,
like
it's
they're
a
talking
job.
about things that they've done, or they're hyping up things that they're going to do. Like it's
Yeah.
and even then, like yeah, like you said, it's still like they're still like promoting their business, their talents, their projects and stuff. Like
Mhm.
yeah, but like but no, they're not. They don't like owe us anything. Like it said before, we don't own them just because they exist in the public eye.
Yeah. Yeah. And Panda doesn't follow the person from before, so thank you, Panda. Sorry. But yeah. I mean, they don't owe us anything. I mean, I think as far as the product that they put out, um, I think the one thing they would owe, and it's not to the fans necessarily, it's just to be a good person on that set and treat other people respectfully, not cross some kind of boundaries there. But that's what everybody owes to everybody. So that's not necessarily something owing to the fans. I do want to say, I'm not going to add much to this one, just so that we can get move to the other stuff here. But I do want to say, Tay Diggs, you still owe me a follow back. I'm just kidding. I just had to put that out there since it's been over a month, and he's
Your
followed me
bestie
back,
didn't
and
follow
he
you
follows
back.
everybody back, but not me.
It's not a sense of entitlement. It's just because he should.
It's just envy that he wants to follow everybody back but me. I know it's because of equilibrium. I apologize. Anyway, sorry. I had to put that in there. I've been thinking that since we started with this question. So we're gonna start getting probably into the not very light stuff here now. So we're gonna turn to the first darkness. The first darkness. That sounds like a supernatural thing. So I didn't mean for
It's
it.
like a movie.
Yeah, that too.
That's
Um,
darkness.
so we're going to talk about stalking now, and forgetting, that we don't know the celebrity, crossing that line. And I want to mention, I think we all did everyone watch the I Think We're Alone Now documentary?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a very, very, very super duper depressing documentary about two extreme Tiffany fans. And it starts out terrifying, and it quickly becomes one of the most depressing things you will ever watch, honestly. And I wanted to mention this one in this realm of the stalking and crossing that line, because this is all about two Tiffany fans. Jeff Turner, who did have a restraining order issued against him by not just Tiffany, but eventually Alyssa Milano. Susie was telling us that before we started this. And then Kelly McCormick, who had a traumatic brain injury, basically was in a and then heard the song, I Think We're Alone Now. And then that kind of kicked off the obsession with Tiffany and thinking that they were destined to be together. And even her apartment was covered with Tiffany stuff. So, and these are adults. grown adults. Jeff is old, I think probably older than Tiffany. And it follows the two of them. And they both, Jeff says they're best friends, that Tiffany and are best friends, and they have this psychic communication that they do. And it's just a very, very sad film about documentary about mental illness, really. Really, that's what I think it's about. So, Carla, what were your thoughts on this documentary? And did you think the documentary, how do you think the documentary handled these two? Actually, is what I really want to know.
I think it was just very factual. They presented just factual things, and that was kind of the extent of it. I did think it was kind of weird when it crossed into getting them together, and because I was like, you're just enabling these delusions, and you're just setting it up for confrontation between them, because it could have gotten really dicey there when you have two people who think that they have rights to a third person. It's just very, very volatile. I think I don't know why they chose to do that, but at first I thought it was well done, like the first part of it, because you do get to see what is going on in their minds. Like, what is it that's leading them to think that they have these relationships with Tiffany that are so extraordinary and that to them are so real. Um, I There is so much to be said about the very many failures of the mental health system in the United States. And I mean, obviously, healthcare overall is a mess, but mental health care is not even prioritized in any way for any population. But when you have this additional layer of potential harm to people, in addition to the ones who need the help, like, it's just very concerning. It's very, it just makes me think a lot about how we need better things in place, better mechanisms in place to allow people to seek help, to receive good help that is ongoing, and that is not based on how much they can pay or whether they can pay. Um, and certainly, like I said, the documentary kind of lost me when they paired up the two of them, because that was just, I don't know, it's like using them. It's using the subjects to titillate and to create friction for the hope that, like, what were they hoping for? That, like, they would both launch themselves at Tiffany, that they would, like, duke it out. Like, what was the point of it? And then you see when Kelly kind of calls out Jeff and says, I'm trying to have a moment here. I'm talking about my relationship with Tiffany, and you're talking over me, which is a very valid point, because he was, and he was a whole set of stuff. Like, the transphobia was awful. It was just okay.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of made Jeff realize that he's not the only person who sees Tiffany like this. And then he moved on to Alyssa Milano. So it just shifted his focus onto somebody else, which is not good either. But I think in a way it kind of pushed Kelly off of that constant train of thought with Tiffany, which I guess was a good thing, but we don't really know, because the documentary kind of drops the ball on an ending. It's just like, okay, and then nothing happened. All right, cool. But yeah, like, that's all I can really say about it, because it's so incomplete, and it was so manipulative in its use of these two people. Because, yes, they're, particularly Jeff, are obsessed. Jeff is a stalker in the most creepy way, where, like, he's touched her. It's just, oh. But they're still people, and they clearly both need help. And the purpose of this documentary was more to entertain than to inform. And it's to entertain at the expense of these two vulnerable people. Which again, Jeff is awful for many reasons, but like that's still really questionable in ethics.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
felt really exploitative by the end of it to me, because not only of them and bringing them together, but then like, yeah, we're going to go to a Tiffany concert and film their interaction with Tiffany, who has the patience of a damn saint,
I know.
because was very professional and everything like that, but you could see how uncomfortable she was with the whole interaction. And yeah, Jeff is a giant creeper. I think he was 35 when he kissed an 18-year-old Tiffany, and that was like
Yes. Yes.
the start of their relationship. It just it did. So it started off on this really creepy note of him talking about him, and then he brings a saber, like a sword, to her to a concert, and that's what triggered the restraining order, I'm pretty sure. And he gets really excited when they name him by name in the newspaper article, and you can tell he is very unwell, not just because of Tiffany, but you hear a lot of his other conspiracy theories, and how he's just fighting fascism, and he has all these weird like psychic links and all this other time travel. There's so much, and I feel like this documentary was much more to kind of titillate and make fun rather than kind of get to the root of this. And it didn't feel like it was doing much of a service to Tiffany or to other celebrities or to Kelly or Jeff. And Kelly has this heartbreaking story where she was in this coma for 16 days. Like and I can understand her connection if that's something that really connected her after this traumatic brain injury. I can understand that connection. It gets too far. It clearly goes beyond anything, but I completely agree with Carla and with you, Erin, that this really became kind of a documentary of our failing mental health system, because these are two people who very clearly need help and they don't have access to it. And it just, yeah, it made me angry, and it broke my heart in a lot of ways, because they were creepy with their obsessions, but I also just felt really, really bad for them as people. And this documentary was not doing anything to raise awareness about what they were going through. It was just there to kind of mock them. So it felt like punching down a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Susie, I know you did some further research after this, and I know you have information about both of them.
Oh yeah.
This, right?
There
Yeah.
are no. Okay, so in the case of Jeff, he the Tiffany, like the I think We're Alone Now documentary page on Facebook, like the last thing that they said about him as sort of like an update is in 2018 he had a heart attack and was moved to a nursing home, and that's kind of like the last, and he was in recovery, and that's kind of like the last thing they have about him. Hopefully he has made a full recovery and is doing well and hopefully doing better in his life and personally and mentally and everything. There is no news on Kelly. The only thing that I was able to find about her is that an interview she did sometime after the fact that the documentary came out, she said that they asked her to like beef up her intersexness more, and she felt that they were very exploitative with her history, and because they wanted her to like they were like really exaggerated and really like like make this a thing, and she was just like, well, all right then. But like, yeah, this documentary, like it did like skeeve me out a bit, like it does, because but it makes you feel, in a way, it kind of made me feel really sad for both Kelly and Jeff because they had no good support system in their lives. Like growing up, Kelly was Kelly was hurt by her parents' divorce and growing up in like differing environments where her mom wanted her to be a girl and her dad wanted her to be a boy, and just like struggling with her identity and trying to find somewhere where she belonged, and in a way I think her like listening to like Tiffany's music and having her while she was in that coma, like to her that might have been like a guiding light and like something that really like helped her see light in the darkness. And I think that she probably just like glommed onto that and just didn't want to let go because that was maybe one of like the darkest moments of her time that brought her hope. And you can like see how that affects her so deeply, like even when she wasn't able to go see Tiffany's concert when she was in Colorado because of her
Mhm.
ID, you can see how much that really like brought her down and really upset her and put her in a bad place. And yeah, it sucks to not see your favorite artist if you have the chance to, but also like don't let that like affect your whole like mood. She even goes out and like goes to get alcohol to try, I feel, to like drown her sorrows in it, and it's so so sad and just like heartbreaking. And even like you even get the sense from Jeff that he also was like didn't have the best support system, like from his interactions with his stepfather. You kind of get the feeling that his stepfather bullied him a bit as a kid, like even like it seems like his stepfather loved his toy trains more than he did his own stepson and like prioritized them above him.
Well, and you look at it, this is 2008, and this was like the emergence of, not even the emergence, but Asperger's syndrome, which Jeff has, and the autism spectrum. So if you think about him growing up prior to the awareness brought about, and those
It also brings other like
the way
more
people on
heartbreaking implications too, and it's
yeah,
just
the way people on the spectrum have and still are treated, even now that there is more knowledge about autism. But just trying to think of when he was growing up as a kid, his awkwardness and how that would have contributed a lot to his isolation and his loneliness.
yeah. And like in a way when you kind of like learn about their like when they tell you about their upbringings and you kind of like look into it and how yeah, like Tiffany was maybe like the one bright source in their lives and they just completely latched onto that and like yeah, view her as like this ultimate kind of like saintly being. And the watching the like you just you kind of feel sad for them because you can see how in a way like the mental health system and the world around them has kind of failed them a little bit, or even a lot, because it just oh, it's just so heartbreaking. And it like and yeah, the documentary itself like does feel exploitative, like even in the fact that like when you get to the end it just ends, like there's no like
Yeah, there's no like postscript or anything
no
like that.
postscript, nothing. It's just okay, and
Mhm.
they met Tiffany, and there we go. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, like, do we get any like follow up at least, or like what's, or you just came here to do it and that's it? Okay, fine.
Yeah, it felt a lot like watching tabloid journalism in a lot of respects because it didn't. I was like, what are we trying to learn here? What are we trying to gain here? And I think what we're trying to gain here is to humiliate two people who are very ill, who need a lot of help, who should be getting treatment of some kind. I felt more for Kelly. I'll be honest, I felt more for Kelly than I did for Jeff. I think Kelly also had, you know, alcoholism problems as well. And I think Kelly had such a traumatic childhood. I mean, just imagine that you have, one parent wanting you to be one way, and one parent wanting you to be a boy, and then the other parent is dressing up as a girl, and you're probably I would imagine in school being treated like, I mean she did say that she was popular, but I also have to imagine, and I don't know this for a fact, that there was probably also some bullying under there. There was probably bullying by one or both of her parents. And her friends, until like after the Tiffany concert in Las Vegas, her friend, that guy that was her quote unquote friend, was a complete ass and didn't even respect calling her by the pronouns that she wanted to be called by. And I don't care that this was 2008. That's bullshit, and you should respect your friend if they're actually your friend. And that scene where he just kept going back and forth with different pronouns was so flippin' obnoxious. I wanted to punch him. It was just like, it was just, I was like, you know what? You're not a true friend then. You're not being a true friend because you're not respecting her and what her wishes are. She is identifying as female and you're not respecting that. And that's that was one of the things that just irked me the most. And I think even Jeff's friends aren't good friends. But and Jeff is so removed from reality that he even thinks when Tiffany has her bodyguards around him to protect her from him, he thinks those bodyguards are there to protect him. And that is really removed. And like I said, he thinks they're best friends. And I kept, I was amazed because I would assume that Tiffany must have given her permission to be in this because she's in this a lot more than I thought she would be. And you can tell how absolutely terrified she is, and not just uncomfortable. She looks scared to me. And I would be too. I mean, if you know what this guy has been saying about you, and there he is, and there he is there, and there he is there, and everywhere I go, there he is, and he's touching me. And the thing is, even if you're at a convention, remember that consent is something that applies here. You don't have their unless they say you can hug me, you can touch me, you don't have their consent to do that. So that bothered me a lot. And yeah, the Vegas concert, oh my gosh, that was one of the trashiest things because it felt like they were trying to set it up to have a moment where one of them did something to Tiffany or attempted to. And I think that's what they were trying to go for. And you could tell, frankly, I don't think Kelly liked Jeff one flippin' bit. And same for, well, I think Jeff was so gone he didn't really even see reality, but I think Kelly was like, I don't like this guy at all. And so that made me uncomfortable for her that she had to be put in that situation. And yes, what they are doing is especially Jeff, I think more than Kelly, is wrong, but even though I think there is some level of danger there, especially when it comes to Jeff, it's like the filmmakers that they lost their own humanity making this, and they were doing to them what they felt they were doing to Tiffany. And it was really, that's why it's so depressing to me. It's like, I mean, and to not have a postscript to at least tell you, I mean, I did find some hope for Kelly that Kelly found that one woman and she seemed to be a genuine friend for Kelly. Like she was like, Kelly is great. Kelly is so funny. And I was like, oh, maybe this is a genuine connection for her. And maybe this person can help her maybe move beyond Tiffany to like a real relationship with someone, a real friendship, a real connection. And that was hopeful. But Jeff's thing of, well, now I've moved to Alyssa Milano was like, oh my gosh. And he's also a hoarder. That's another thing you saw there. And so there's a lot of different levels of sadness there. And these are just two very sad individuals. So,
well, and
anyway.
it felt like honestly, it felt like these people for this, I'm going to put documentary in quotes there because when they interceded and orchestrated this meeting that's not what you're supposed to do as a documentarian. You're supposed to document. You're not supposed to put yourself into the story, which is what they did. I feel like they took these two people and like, hey, if you're in this movie that we're doing, we're gonna get you tickets to go see Tiffany.
I betcha that's what they, yeah.
And that just made it all feel gross.
And I wonder if how they presented it to Tiffany, if maybe they said, hey, listen, we want to document the effects of these people. Because I just can't imagine somebody being like, hey, we're going to follow these people around and put them in your face and see how uncomfortable you get. And that's going to be the documentary.
And that makes, I feel like, those filmmakers almost worse.
Oh, yeah.
Than
Oh,
Kelly.
yeah.
Like, not even almost worse than Kelly and Jeff, because they were exploiting everybody.
No, here's a little backstory about the documentary itself. Actually, the documentary filmmaker admitted that he met Jeff first and heard about learned about his obsession with Tiffany, and was like, oh, maybe I could do a documentary about this and like do like about his obsession with Tiffany. And then they met Kelly and were like, oh yeah, I can definitely do a documentary about this. Like, this is gonna be gold. And it was like, no, sir, no.
See, that's tabloidy. That is not being a documentary filmmaker. That's being a tabloid. That's being a paparazzi. That's not being like a, like respectful or wanting to respect your subjects or wanting to gain anything or wanting your audience to learn anything. Because all I learned was these people are, oh my gosh, they're like crying out for help and nobody's helping them, especially Kelly. I just emphasize Kelly above anything. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, I didn't, because I didn't like that they paired her with Jeff, who was clearly not a safe person for her to be around. He's deeply religious, and he has already expressed a lot of really misogynistic views and very close-minded views. And you're putting him with an intersex person who is vulnerable for a lot of reasons, not the least of which being that she's an intersex person. And you're putting her with, she's basically, I think she said that she was basically dependent on Jeff for the room.
Yeah. She was. Yeah.
So where was she going to stay otherwise? So
I don't think safety
so creepy and so wrong.
Yeah.
I
don't think safety
was
on the
word
list
for her
at
too.
all.
So that was
A lot of them use.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, putting her in a room with someone who's using that word.
Well, and someone, I think they filmed him being like, "Well, I'm gonna call Kelly him because that's what I've decided I wanted to do, and if it's both, I can." And he said, I can choose," and that was so gross. And then you're gonna leave this person alone with him. I don't think this crew these filmmakers cared about safety of anybody, even a little bit. Like, I think they would have been thrilled if there had been a dangerous incident with Tiffany or between the two of them. And that's disgusting because I feel like paparazzi is like the lowest of the low.
Yeah.
And that's what this felt like. Like, it
was just gross. Okay, well, we're not going to go into the different levels of stalking just because of time-wise, because we have a bunch of other things that are even more depressing than this, believe it or not. But I just want to briefly know, and just briefly on here, because I know this is kind of a duh question, but has social media made this all worse, Carla?
I'm of two minds about this because it's given people more access. But I think that the problem has always been there. And I don't really think that it's social media so much as it is the deteriorating of the healthcare system. It's never been great to begin with, but it's become so much worse. And as much awareness as there is of stuff, there's also like defunding that's taking place. That's just, it's a recipe for disaster. But yeah, so social media It's not social media. It is the expectation that celebrities must be on social media. So I think a lot of this falls on publicists, and on people who drop contracts that force people onto social media, whether they are interested in it or not. I don't think that there should be a requirement for people to be on it if they don't want to be. Um, I don't care what your research shows. You're throwing people into the lion's den, and it's not okay.
Yeah. Meg.
Um, yeah, I think social media has I don't know if made it worse, but just made it, I guess, more prevalent. Um, because once you feel like you know someone through social media, you feel entitled to a lot more stuff. Once you get pictures of their kids or their families that they're choosing to share, then I feel like people feel like they're entitled to know more and more and more. And if they don't want me to know more, then why are they sharing this with me? If they don't want me to see them at the restaurant, then why are they showing, like, why are they tagging the restaurant that they're going to be at, or that they go to, or stuff like that? So I feel like it's made it harder for people to tell the difference between a parasocial relationship and a real relationship. And I think that's kind of added things to it. It also gives access that I don't think they had before to celebrities' families. And that puts their families in danger. That puts their, I mean, you can see it with like Harry Styles. You can see it with in Supernatural, Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles and Misha Collins' spouses and their children are bullied and harassed. And I know that at least a couple of them have, I think all of them probably have restraining orders on some fans who have taken things too far. And once you involve someone's family in that, then that becomes a whole other level. And I feel like social media has kind of made a lot of people feel like they're entitled to that. Like you, someone's in your living room once a week, so you feel like you know that person. You don't think about it being a person, a character that an actor is playing. Then imagine it if they're on your phone all the time, and you can read their thoughts if they do their stream of conscious tweeting or Instagramming and stuff. So yeah, I think it's made people feel much more entitled, and I think it's made people who maybe before social media would not have gotten to that level of obsessed, um, able to get there. I think that's been an issue not just with celebrities. I feel like social media has been an issue for stalking and bullying, um, full stop overall. But I think it's made it a lot easier for people to feel like they own celebrities and are entitled to them, like not even their time, them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Susie.
No, yeah, I agree. I think social media has made things just a little bit like it has done some good things, like connect us with the people around us, and it is really helpful, especially during these times, because it can let us contact people we may not have been able to see, we may not be able to see otherwise, or have been able to talk to otherwise, which is good in a sense, but it is very harmful in that, in a way that it makes people feel like they can have ownership of someone, or that they can know someone, when in most cases when it comes to like celebrities or social figures, what they're putting on their social media is content that is curated either very carefully by themselves or by a team of publicists, people who know like what to do. Like I know I have friends who, whenever they put pictures on social media, for everyone that they post, there's like 150 of them that don't make it, that aren't deemed good enough, because they have to present this carefully like stylized image of the quote unquote brand that they're trying to like put out there and represent. And it comes to that with celebrities. Like if we get like social media lets us get like a little bit of a snippet into their lives, and like we're like, thank you for sharing that. They don't have to share that. They're not like beholden to share that with us. Like if they share a picture of their dog, they don't have to share a picture of their dog. They just thought like some people might enjoy it, but then some people might take that too far and be like, oh, their duck is Jimbo Jr. and now I know everything about them. And it's like, no, this person is just choosing to share a small slice of their life with their fans, but they don't owe you anything more than that.
Mhm.
Like they can just as easily like delete all their social medias like some celebrities have done because people cross the line. People go too far. Again, it's that whole like pedestal thing. People forget that they're human and they have feelings and they hurt. And it's just like it's harmful in that sense that like when people forget that there's a person behind that image, behind that screen, that's when it goes too far and that's what it does like damage.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't have much really to add to that except for ditto on all of that. I think, um, if you want to get a little creeped out or a little skeezed out, just go to the replies to any celebrity's post anywhere. And some of the stuff people say, I'm like, you do realize this person could very easily see what you're saying, right? I mean, I know sometimes they don't because for their own sanity, I'm sure they mute most of it, but they could see it and their kids could see it, their spouses could see it, their partners could see it. And that's the scary part about it is it opens up this window where I think there was a time where yes, I mean most of the cases we're about to talk about were all before social media was huge like this. So I mean there are other cases after that, of course, but the main ones we're going to focus on were all, I mean, the latest one was 1995. So I don't know what the other ones we might bring up are, but if the ones we have listed. So yes, this was a problem forever. But I think with social media, what happened is there was a time, I think, where most people thought of celebrities as this far distant people that you would never see. And then you get social media and they're right there on your phone. They're right there on the same app. You can follow them. They can make funny videos that you can feel like you're a part of. You can be there when they're doing like a live chat or something like that. And so I think what happened is people stopped seeing that line that people might have already seen before. And then, and I'm not saying they went to the dangerous levels, but then people went to the level of going, well, now they're a part of my life. And now it's okay that I am invading their privacy in some way. So I think that was the big change. Like I said, there's good sides of social media. None of us would know each other without social media, but there are those very dangerous sides, and not just, like has been mentioned, not just with celebrities, with other people too. So, yeah, we need to move on. I'm sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to add
on.
one thing because
Move on.
you had mentioned how so many of these take place before social media. I think the advent of the internet and social media, and especially after Rebecca Schaefer, who we'll talk about, there were firms and there are people now who scour, and I think
Yeah.
the internet has made it more accessible to be around celebrities, but it's also made it a lot harder to hide.
Yeah, that's true.
And I feel like that's kind of what has helped a little bit as far as social media goes. Like if you're broadcasting what you're going to do on Facebook, people can stop you. And
Yeah.
that happens a lot.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to move on to when fans kill or attempt to kill either the person they are obsessed with or somebody very, very close to them. So we're going to move on to that. We have 4 here that I've listed, and then, sorry, just 1 second here. Okay. So I'm going to mute you, Carla. Okay. 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 So we're going to first start out with John Lennon, which I think is one of the most famous and well-known ones. All of these, really, the 4 that we're going to talk about, who was assassinated on December 8th, 1980 in New York in front of the Dakota by Mark David Chapman, who was incensed with Lennon's lavish lifestyle, and also a comment that made about the Beatles being more popular than Jesus. It's famously known, and a few of these on here go into this too, that he was inspired by the character of Holden Caulfield from Catcher in the Rye, which I'm not blaming Catcher in the Rye, but there are what's really interesting is so many of these people on here were inspired by that book. And I just found that really an interesting little tie in here. When we get to Rebecca Schaefer, it was the same kind of thing too. And a lot of these people were inspired by each other too, by some of the acts they did, especially the person who assassinated Rebecca Schaefer was inspired by somebody who attempted to kill another actress. So, or at least as far as following the guidelines of how he obtained her address, which her case changed a lot of things that when the way things were handled in LA. So I want to first get into John Lennon. And if you had any thoughts or anything about Mark David Chapman and this assassination.
Okay, well, first of all, do I still have a lot of feedback?
You
Is
don't.
there?
You're quiet
Okay.
though.
Okay, give me 1 second. How's
All right,
this?
everybody. That's better. That's
Okay.
better.
All right. Well, with this particular case, it's so. Listen, I'm not a fan of John Lennon. I thought like a lot of the same things about the contrast between his lifestyle and his work, where he is preaching all of these things about, simplicity and blah 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 and da da da, but he's living in this penthouse and all of that. None of that excuses what this man did, because it's one thing to not like a celebrity, it's one thing to not like what they're present, just any of that, completely valid. But to take that extra step, that is just unfathomable to me. And we're going from fans stalking to somebody who is not a fan, who is like so much not a fan that they decided this person doesn't need to live anymore. And that's just, the fact that somebody can think that a person doesn't deserve to live, and then they take action, and then that's the end of it. And all of the people that we're discussing, I think, were killed by a gunshot.
Yes.
And which gets into this whole other thing about like, why is there so much easy access to firearms? What is the point? Why it hasn't been curbed? In fact, it has been ramped up. It's like, let's give more people guns, and the whole pretense of like, just to protect yourself. That's not what it is. They just, it's okay, whatever. Whole other story. But the point is that um, none of us are God, and none of us get to determine when a person gets to live or not. So, again, as somebody who does not care for John Lennon's message, music, etc., that still doesn't mean that you get to take them out of the picture. It's like, what has to happen in that person's mind, and was it something that could have been stopped? Like, could somebody have noticed that this was going to happen, and could they have um, brought him to get help, or have somebody sit them down? I just, it's incomprehensible to me that that a person could not only think these thoughts but take action on them, and then have the access to a firearm to produce a death because they didn't like somebody. Like that's just, nobody should get to play God. And it just, it makes me sad, and it makes me angry that so many lives are lost daily to gun violence for things like this, for more violent reasons, by accident, whatever the case may be. It's senseless and awful.
And Meg, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so my mom was a massive John Lennon fan. She still has the newspaper from when he died. She was devastated. That is one of the moments for her where you ask her where she was, and she would tell you. And I've heard the story from her over and over again about John Lennon being killed. And I think what a lot of people have such a hard time with John Lennon is, you think of John Lennon and you think of Imagine. I feel like is what the first thing most people think of, and then this idealistic song about peace and love and sharing all the world, and then to see someone who, in the public eye, regardless of what he was personally living, and that personal lifestyle that was not very congruent with what his song was, that song still speaks to a lot of people. And to have someone who, that message is what you primarily know them for, especially now, to be taken in such a violent and horrific manner and so senselessly. I feel like that's what really resonated so much with people. And I'm trying to think of something for me and for our generation, or for my generation, that really kind of matches up to what the Beatles were. And I can't think of something that, I guess, BTS maybe, but I feel like there was nothing kind of like the Beatles. Like them, don't like them, whatever. It does not change the fact that they were a massive, massive sensation. And to have one of them gunned down by, of course, not a fan, but, and then to hear it was horrifying, and it was senseless. And then to hear that he went there and kind of lost his nerve a little bit, and then he came back, and it just, and the ripple effect of that was fans committed suicide because John Lennon was killed. And you look at the whole, I am not a fan of the book The Catcher in the Rye. It's my sister's favorite book. I am not a fan. But the damage and the reputation that was done to that book, that we still see today, because he was holding it, because he was carrying it with him when he shot John Lennon, is, in my mind, so messed up. And it's very consistent with America. Let's be perfectly honest. A gun killed John Lennon, but let's focus on the book.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the book, not on the thing that actually did it, not on the mental health issues that caused this person to have these delusions, and not on the weapon that he was somehow able to procure that killed this man. Let's focus on the book about a sad 17-year-old kid who just wanted to fuck around and hated everybody, like every fucking 17-year-old. Like, John Lennon being murdered is disgusting and infuriating. I think Carla really, really kind of said all there is to say about that. But the repercussions and the aftermath of his death was, I think, equally tragic. These fans who killed themselves because of it, and people who were traumatized by it and still live with that trauma and still live with that pain to this day, 42 years later, is just, it was so senseless.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was so senseless. And it's not, politicians, you can kind of like, obviously it's horrible when politicians are assassinated, but there's that divisiveness in politics that doesn't make it wholly unexpected that someone would want to assassinate a politician. A musician, an entertainer, it's a whole different level of just messed up. Like, I'm trying to figure out a way to word that with the politicians.
No, I get what you're saying. It's like, because they are in a political arena and they're tasked with they can make changes to people's lives.
Yes.
Whereas celebrities aren't making changes necessarily to people's lives. So there is sort of a difference there where I think when you're in politics, you can have that expecting of like, there might be something where,
Yeah.
you're going to be in danger that you might be
Like
assassinated because
JFK
of a political reason.
JFK being assassinated was tragic and horrifying, but not like, oh my God, how could this possibly have happened?
Yeah.
John Lennon was a bit more of that because, like I said, he was just a singer. He was a singer. He was an entertainer. He wasn't, I don't want to say he wasn't making a difference because I think to a lot of people personally, he made a big difference, but he wasn't in major control of anything that was going on in the world, really.
Yeah. Susie, your thoughts on?
Yeah. I don't have much that I can add. I mean, I don't know what Catcher in the Rye is about. Never read it. Although from Meg's summary of it, I feel like I got a pretty succinct idea of what it's about.
I hate that book so much. Sorry, Salinger.
My like for Lennon goes as far as the Beatles, just because I used to listen to them as a kid growing up. That was like my family's music du jour. But I just think of it more in the aspect of like how sad it is that his family lost someone. Like his kids lost their father. Yoko lost her husband, partner. I don't know if they were married at the time, but she's still like he think of it more in the fact that like people that loved him, like they had him taken from them, like suddenly and violently. And like speaking from personal experience, and to get a little graphic, that shit hurts a lot. It does. And it affects you so much. And I completely agree with Carla. Like who the hell are we to play God? And like no one should be judge, jury, and executioner. No one should have the power to take the life of someone else. Like that just shouldn't happen. And the fact that it has, like time and time again, is like just so like super shitty. It's horrible. And like something that I kept thinking, especially when I was like looking into the background, like doing research for this podcast and seeing the people that have lost their lives to fanatics, is just the sorrow that I feel, and just the like the immense sadness that like it doesn't matter if you like love this person or hated this person. That was still a human being. That was someone that like even if they made mistakes, that had people that loved them. And because of someone else had who has this God complex, their loved ones never get to see them again. And that just hurts. And that just it makes me so upset.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Susie. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I'll probably just like run off camera and collect myself real quick, but I'll be back.
Okay. I think with John Lennon's assassination, I think this also goes with the Manson family, with what happened during the Rolling Stone concert with Hell's Angels and all that stuff that happened there at what's the name of that concert? Anyway, I can't remember it now, where there were fans, like there was like they had Hell's Angels hired as security, and there was a whole thing that happened. It begins with an A. Now I can't remember it. I'll look it up here. I think those are three events that for people like my mom's generation, and people that loved this music and found such power in it. I think these are events that marked the end of that hope for peace and love and all of that. And I think this was the final one that really, I think, sealed that for a lot of people, where it was like, okay, this is really the death of what we wanted to stand for. And whether or not John Lennon was a good person, or whether or not John Lennon actually held up to those values that he professed, doesn't matter, because what he stood for and what his, in people's minds, and his music and how much his music meant and means to people, is why it was so tragic. Because this wasn't like someone dying from a heart attack. This wasn't something like that. This was someone being ripped away from the world in a violent manner, and in such a cruel way. And for nothing, for your anger at this person who, even though you were a fan, he said he was a fan of the Beatles, but angry about this. It's, once again, it's to that next level, where you think you have a say in what they're going to be producing, and because they're doing something you don't like, then you get to end them. And you're doing a favor, or what you're doing isn't wrong, because none of these people really believed what they were doing was wrong ever. So it's just so cruel and heartbreaking, and the ripple effect with the family, with people killing themselves afterwards, with Catcher in the Rye being blamed for this, because people want a scapegoat. They don't want to look at the gun part. They don't want to look at mental health. They don't want to look at that stuff. They want a scapegoat of something, violent video games, this, blah, 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 is what turns someone into this, instead of looking at the real causes. And then also, instead of looking at why the hell can people get guns so easily in this country, and why are we so obsessed with guns? So, and of course, when we're going to talk about the Jodie Foster one here in a minute. And of course, that led eventually to the Brady bill. But at the same time, there's still, you look at the world, we're obsessed with guns. So it's just a very tragic, sad thing that happened. No matter how you feel about the person, like we've said. And I think it was, for a generation, a really heartbreaking moment.
Yeah.
I think for Generation X, and this wasn't an assassination, but I think as far as music wise, I think when Kurt Cobain died, I think that was kind of the same kind of feeling for a lot of people. That was a death of something there too. I think also even River Phoenix's death. So I think that those kind of things for a generation as well. So
Well, and
okay,
and I'm sorry, I wanted to just think about 1980, the people who cared about this. Yeah, in the 20 years prior, in those 20 years, JFK Jr., Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Bobby Kennedy. I can't imagine, like, all of these lights of hope just being extinguished one by one. And it makes more sense to me how John Lennon's death was so, like, my mom's first memory is JFK being assassinated. So just thinking about all of these tragedies in so many people's formative years, especially, and how it kind of culminates in that. Anyway, I get that.
Yeah. And just really quickly before we move on to the Jodie Foster, that was at Altamont Festival. It was at the end of the 1960s. It was thought as the bringing the end to what the 1960s were. A 21-year-old Hell's Angel named Alan Parso stabbed a gun-wielding 18-year-old named Meredith Hunter to death just 20 feet in front of the stage where Mick Jagger was performing Under My Thumb. And they were unaware that someone had died, and they had completed their set. So and that's thought of as the incident that really ended the 60s for sure. That and of course Manson, which could even go into this, honestly, with the stalking, because the Beach Boys and also who was murdered. So Sharon Tate and everything. So okay, well, now we're going to move on to Jodie Foster to John Hinckley Jr., who attempted to assassinate Ronald Reagan on March 30th, 1981. Instead, the press secretary, James Brady, like stepped in front and got shot. This led eventually to the Brady Bill, which required federal background checks for guns. And they're still trying to work on stuff, so it's still not a perfect thing at all. Um, John Hinckley Jr., his obsession with Jodie Foster started with Taxi Driver, which Taxi Driver, if you've never seen Taxi Driver is all about Travis Binkle, played by um, Robert Robert De Niro, and he is going to assassinate a political candidate, and Jodie Foster plays a teenage, basically prostitute in this, and he became obsessed with her through that, and then kept following her. He did this as a way, they always said, to impress her, to get her attention. And yeah, so we're going to get into this one. So, Carla.
This is just one of those other stories where it's, well, for one thing, you have the tangible elements of repercussions. Okay, where you have somebody who is shot and severely injured. You have, national panic. You have all of these things. You have law attempts that come out of this, all of those things. But then you also have an actress who, even though she wasn't there, was very much there, and for the rest of her life is being hounded with questions about something that she had no part in. And it's even as recently as last year when I think he was released, that there's this constant harassment of Jodie Foster where she can't really go anywhere without somebody asking her about it. So you have the physical effects of an assassination or an assassination attempt, but then you also have the psychological effects, which I can't imagine what it must have been like for Brady, for his family, for anybody who was present that moment, but also for Jodie Foster to just be innocently out there doing her work and then have somebody latch on to a character that she portrayed and in their mind justify a murder attempt because of that. I just can't, I just can't even think how difficult that must be to process and to live with, because nobody will let her forget it. And that is incredible. It's an unfair burden to put on somebody that to be forever tied to this. And she did nothing wrong. She did nothing wrong. She did her job. Some man became obsessed with that particular performance and acted on that obsession, but none of this was on her.
Mm-hmm.
So, I always just think about how utterly unfair it was to everybody. Of course, everybody who was present at the attempt, Brady himself, but also Jodie Foster to just constantly have that as part of her bio, something that you can talk all you want about how magnificent she is and how talented she is and how just preternaturally gifted she always has been, but then at some point somebody will bring this up and it has nothing to do with her or with her talent, and they just won't let it go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she's such a private person too. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, but you gotta wonder if this is part of why she's such a private person. It's like if people are going to just completely latch onto this and forever harass her about it, like, why would you want to go a step further and be like, oh, hi everybody, here are my innermost thoughts? Why would you want to do that? Like, I can't even. No.
Yeah. Meg.
Yeah, well, and I think it's heartbreaking that Jodie Foster is synonymous, like her name is synonymous with John Hinckley Jr. Like it's forever going to be tied to it, and there's not really anything to be done because that ship has kind of sailed. The bell has been rung. I think what's so interesting about this whole situation was this was a presidential assassination attempt that had nothing to do with that president's politics. Like John Hinckley Jr. did not care who was president. He followed Jimmy Carter around.
Yep.
And he just couldn't get a good shot on Jimmy Carter. And so then he went home and he, geared up again or whatever, and then decided to go after Ronald Reagan. And I think what's so, on top of what Carla said, what's so just insane to me is he's been released. Like, he tried to kill a president and he's releasing his own music right now. And it speaks so much to the fame that these killers get. And we're going to talk about Rebecca Schaefer and John Bardo. But the idea that this man can try to kill a president, claim insanity, go to and have all of these very serious mental health issues, try and like talk to Ted Bundy, talk with Charles Manson, and still be mad that this was the greatest offering of love he could give her and she didn't reciprocate. And he's so bummed out. And he's there out in the streets now, and Jodie Foster is still there. Like, I cannot believe that this man is free. Like, it's insane to me. But it just, I completely agree. Jodie Foster, this poor woman, was just doing a job. She's just working, and her name is forever tied to a presidential assassination attempt. And it's so unfair to her because she had nothing to do with it. She wasn't there like trying to scheme or anything like that. It was just, she was in the quote unquote wrong movie, apparently, with the wrong plot line to get this guy to want to get her attention. And that was just,
Mm-hmm.
It was so, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that whole music thing and fame thing with, I mean, you can look at people like I've already mentioned, Charles Manson was doing like, and people.
So you can
like,
look at Ted Bundy.
I knew people, well, yeah, but I mean, like I knew people who, like had, like I knew someone who had a poster of Charles Manson up in her room. So it's like, and a lot of people were like, he didn't have anything to do with that. I'm like, whatever. So Susie, your thoughts on this one?
No, I don't. Listen, I don't think there's any like other like helpful insight that I can add other than like I have tremendous amount of respect for Jodie. She has mentioned before, like in passing, that if the topic would like, if any interviewer tried to bring up, try to bring this up, she would like cancel the interview and say, no, I'm not doing it. I'm going to talk about my work. And if you don't want to talk about that and you just want to sensationalize it, I'm not going to do it. And she actually did a podcast on the 15th of last year, on February 15th of last year, where she talked about like how she didn't let this define her career. And her mother was a publicist, and she said that her mother gave her the advice of like, if they try to get you to talk about it, you tell them no. You talk about it if you ever do. And Jodie said that she just wrote like an article for Esquire where she said what she needed to say and then done. That was it. And then she was just going to focus on her career and not let this define her or really like monumentally change her in any way. And I really respect her for that, for not letting this man have any sort of power over her, or how she was going to like represent herself, or how she was going to handle things. And I love her for that. I think that's great. The fact that this man was released, I did not know he was released. Why? Just goes to show, like everything else, systems in this city, in this country, are broken so
Mhm.
much.
Yep. Yep. Yep,
Yeah,
they
in,
are. And
in September it was unconditional release. So it's not, it's conditional right now. In June of this year, it'll be unconditional release. He'll just be a free citizen again.
yeah. Yeah, I won't add too much to this except I think Jodie Foster is one of those rare like child actresses that actually had a good life, has a good family. And to have this though must have been just I mean, I can't imagine. And I can't even imagine now knowing that this person is out there. I mean, like you said, Susie, she hasn't let this define her life. But it still has to be hard. And any reputable journalist or any reputable person who's going to interview somebody should not ask questions about this stuff unless the person specifically says they are here to talk about that. Because, yeah, so I think that goes into tabloid journalism right there, because that's none of your business. That's a very personal thing. And you should just be there talking about their career and what they're there to promote, and not talking about their personal life unless they give you the permission or unless they segue to it. That's the only time I think it should be okay. So that's coming from me as an interviewer. Yeah, I can't imagine if I ever was lucky enough to get the chance to interview her being like, let's start by talking about John Hinckley Jr. I'd be like, that's just disrespectful and gross and icky. And it's, being on the level of those documentary makers. So,
Yeah.
but we're going to,
what kind of interview is like, let's talk about the worst
a lot of interviewers,
moment of your
Yeah,
like
a
no,
lot of
a
journalists,
lot
like
a
this
lot
stuff.
yeah,
of
a lot of people.
unscrupulous.
Like
A
there have
lot.
been like, it's not
And
even
not just
her. Like,
her. Yeah.
yeah, when Robert Downey Jr. started being like Iron Man, people wanted to interview him and be like, "So tell us about your past with drugs." And
Tell us about that Goldilocks
I
incident.
respect that he would be like, "No, I'm going to shut this down. If you're going to start talking about this, I'm going to leave. Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
here to talk about the movie that I'm doing, nothing else."
I just want to
And
talk
then they
about
get
life
painted as
just
being
forever.
difficult
As
because they
being
don't want to talk
difficult, and
about
it's like,
that.
no, they were being
Bullshit.
disrespectful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's bullshit. I mean, you're lucky enough to be sitting down with them, and I know it's for promotion, but still, you're lucky enough to be sitting down with them, respect them as a human being. You'd want them to respect you. I'm sure your darkest moments of pain, you wouldn't want people to be, exploiting those. So, yeah. And Panda says yes. Unfortunately, I don't get why. I don't mean, it's really our need for trash. I mean, really, sadly, but okay, well, we're going to move on. This is the one that I know for me as a young child. I remember this very well. This was Rebecca Schaefer. I used to watch My Sister Sam when that short run sitcom was on. I actually loved that sitcom. And Rebecca Schaefer on July 18th, 1989, Robert Bardot, who had been stalking her for a long time, um, killed her on the steps of her apartment. He actually had gone there first, went there. He interacted with her. She spoke to him. She said, "I have to go," because she was actually on her way. She was going to be doing an audition for Francis Ford Coppola for Godfather Part 3, which was a huge deal for her. And so she said, she was in the middle of something. Plus, hello, you're you're at her personal property, which he had gotten this address through the DMV. He had paid them to get her address at the DMV, by the way. icky, gross, disgusting. This case changed a lot of things. So what happened is she didn't give him the response he wanted. He went to a nearby coffee shop, sat there, stewed for a while, went back, rang her buzzer. Unfortunately, the speaker wasn't working at the time, so she went down to see who was there, and he shot her and killed her. Um, and he had been obsessed with her, like I said, for a while. It started with my sister Sam. He had written her and she wrote back. She was known for responding to a lot of her fan mail, which a lot of people said, no, 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 don't respond, don't respond. And she did because she felt like there was too much distance between fans and the actor. And she loved acting. That was her life. And this was her art, and she wanted to share it with people, and she wanted to feel connected to her fans. He took this as a meaning that she wanted to have a relationship with him. He showed up on the Warner Brothers studio lot with a teddy bear, wanting to see her. He got escorted off. The security guy actually drove him back to the place he was staying. So this is something that had been going on for a while. This was another person that had a copy of Catcher in the Rye with him and also mentioned that, which, once again, like we said, that doesn't cause these people to do this stuff. So, yeah, and he also blamed a U2 song called Exit. So he also blamed that. This led to a lot of anti-stalking laws. So this changed a lot in LA. So, Carla, do you remember this when this happened?
No, no, I don't. Remind me the year that it happened?
It was in 1989. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were
Okay.
here yet.
Yeah, no, I had just gotten here, so my scope of interest wasn't expanded yet beyond telenovelas. So not on my radar at the time. But yeah, it's tragic and it's awful as any of these are. But this case like feels particularly awful because she was so young, she was just really starting out, and because she wanted to be accessible. She wanted people to be able to talk to her like a normal person, which is such an admirable thing in general, but especially when you're an up and coming celebrity. And this is where like there's that double-edged sword with being a gregarious person and being a person who wants to include everybody, make everybody feel welcome and loved. Um, where most of the people, you'll be fine if you do that, but there may be that one person who is set off by your kindness and may perceive it in a way that you didn't intend. Um, and I think that's something, like how many times growing up did we hear, okay, well, you can't be too nice to these strangers because they may try to take advantage of you. And frankly, it's because it can be true. And it's really sad that we can't open, I think especially for women, we can't always be, if we want to be, openly embracing and whatever, because somebody might be like, oh, well, this means that you love me. I guess we're getting married now. Um, and it's there's no nice way to say, well, the good thing that came about it, because no, she's still
Yeah.
dead, and that's awful. But at least we got these anti-stalking laws, which eventually started to spread around the country. Um, but all of them are predicated on somebody actually causing you harm, which is just, what sense does that make? If somebody is threatening you, or if somebody is showing inclination towards harming you, can't really do anything about it. But if they break into your house and tie you up and beat you up, then we can, do something about it. What is the point of that? It's just more of the same when it comes to the legal system, where some things that are quote unquote good ideas get reshaped and molded in such a way that they become useless. Um, and that's why, when somebody says, oh, this person broke the law, I'm like, well, tell me about the law. Or when somebody says, well, the law wasn't, there's no law designed to protect you. And it's like, why? All of this is, it's a problem, to put it mildly. There shouldn't have to be a, um, a standard for somebody to meet before they can be killed. Because like when you get to the point where the person's breaking into your house and doing something to you, that's it's already too far. Um, it gets very complicated because there's also the presumption of innocence and just a lot of things that are valid and make sense. But still, there's not enough protection for a lot of people out there. A lot of it is intentional because some people don't think that certain people deserve protection, as we see now happening in Texas and Florida with the recent anti-trans and anti-LGBTQIA plus laws that are being bandied about. Um, but in this specific case, it's a young woman who was just living her life, being an actress, trying to be good to people, and it just happened to be that the wrong person took advantage of that. Um, it's absolutely heartbreaking to know um, that she could still be among us, maybe doing great things, maybe not doing anything. Who cares? She could just be out there living her human life, and that's all that uh, that's all that should be happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and Panda, yeah, he definitely should not have gotten her address for sure. I mean,
Oh yeah, that was the other thing, is that he was able to just pay a private investigator to get her address off the DMV.
No,
he
yeah,
paid.
he just went to the
He went to
DMV.
the
Oh, he
DMV.
did.
Yeah, he
Oh,
just went to the DMV. There was another guy who the guy who tried to murder Teresa Saldano, who stabbed her, and all these people were watching while she was stabbed, and then one person did happen to step in, and he had paid a private investigator. And that case was actually what inspired Robert Bardo, is to try and find some way to find her address, and then it eventually led to him going he just went to the DMV.
right. But but even today, records are still entirely too publicly available. Like
That's true.
somebody can find out just about anything about anybody. You just type in somebody's name, and there are so many aggregating sites where they just have phone numbers and addresses and next of kin and all these things. Like, why does this information need to be publicly available? I don't know that it does. Like,
I just looked it up. Bardo did hire a private investigator to
But
get
he
her.
eventually went to the DMV, though.
No,
right?
the private investigator
Oh,
went
the
to
private
the
investigator.
DMV.
Private
Okay,
investigator
that's
went to DMV.
And I think that's part of what makes this thing so tragic. I do not remember Rebecca Schaefer being killed. I was 4. Not even. I was 4 the
we get
next
it, maybe
day.
you were a child. You were an actor.
I was a toddler. But I think
Susie, don't say anything. I'm sorry.
Susie's like, I was a light, a glimmer in my mother's eye.
Yeah, I might have been swimming around in the testes at that time. Who knows?
You were but a wee over.
Just half of you is in the
there.
What's a wee over? Yeah, half of me was just rolling around in the ovaries. The other half was just swimming away.
I was, my birthday was the day after this, actually. No, I think what's so, aside from her being so young and being, from all accounts, a bright young star, just at the cusp of really making it and being so hardworking and being and wanting to be so accessible to her fans and stuff, was how many steps it took for this to happen, and that there were no checks. There was nothing stopping him. He went there 3 times. He went to LA. He paid a private investigator to get her address, and that just blows my mind and horrifies me that someone can just call the DMV and be like, "Hey, what's your address?" And not even as a celebrity, because I'm a movie star in Public Enemies, you guys. But just like as a person that, and this is before the internet. This is before the internet was like a big thing, and he could just get her address from the DMV and it's so baffling to me. And what kills me is I know Robert John Bartow's name better than I know Rebecca Schaefer's name. Like, I hear Robert John Bartow and I recognize him from documentaries that I've seen, from TV, from Criminal Minds. He's been mentioned on there a few times. And no one really talks about Rebecca Schaefer.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's such a deep tragedy in this. And I understand what Carla's talking about, like not wanting to say anything good came from it, but her death was not in vain. Her parents made sure that steps would be taken, that what happened to them and what happened to her would hopefully not happen to somebody else again, at least certainly not as easily as it seemed to have happened. Like, I couldn't imagine just being able to ring a celebrity's doorbell.
I know.
Like, and you see these people who like climb these fences, and people, I remember celebrities have these big estates with these gates and everything like that. And people are like, oh, why do you want to be so removed from society? I'm like, have you fucking seen Society? Like, and you look at it, and like John Lennon was killed right outside of his home. Yeah, it breaks my heart. It's just so sad, and I think her being forgotten and Robert John Bartow being remembered is another just insult to this tragedy. And it's so messed up. I don't have a lot to add from after Carla. I can't believe the audacity that someone would have to think that they have the right to do this, to take anybody's life, but to just go to someone's home to where you're supposed to be safe and just shoot them for what? Because she was doing her job. Again, just doing her job. And I think it's so gross, like the puritanical mentality and the misogyny that he has, that she dared to act in bed with an actor.
Yeah.
And betray him this way. Like, I'm getting worked up now. It just upsets me so much.
Yeah, it's sad and depressing.
There's so many levels of tragedies and all of these talking. Like, there's so many layers of mental health, of gun laws, of it. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So Panda, you do remember, or you don't? Because I know you said you remember and then you don't remember. But yeah, before social media. Yeah, Mm-hmm. So Susie, I know you were not alive during this time, but what are your thoughts on this one?
It just it fills me with sorrow and fury and just like a rage, because like it saddens me that she was like taken from this world. And from what I've seen of her, it looks like she was a great talent, and that she was a light to the people around her, and that she was gonna do great things. And just and like we never got to see what she could have done, what she would have been able to do. It just infuriates me that this wretch was able to, like, he doesn't even get the distinction of being called a man. This person was able to get he was able to get her a dress. He was able to buy a gun. Like, even maybe not even directly, but listen, from what I've
His
understood
bought it
from the
him.
couple of specials that I watched about this, that you recommended for the viewing of this, is that what I gathered is that his family knew that he was not well mentally.
Yep.
They had full awareness of it, and yet his brother still went ahead and bought him this gun instead of being like, hey, let's I'm not going to do this because this doesn't feel right. because I don't think you're in the right like headspace to have one in your possession, and I don't think this is gonna go well. So I'm gonna say no. Just the fact that like strangers in the street would tell him where she lived just by seeing like him showing a picture of her and them going, oh yeah, she's like just like over there, like just and that he just and the fact that he just that these stalkers inspired each other, like he was inspired by Teresa's stalker to get to like as how to get Rebecca's address. He was inspired by freaking um Lennon's stalker on like to use like the hollow point bullets and to use the freaking Catcher in the Rye book. Like what? No, like it just it makes me so like mad that I feel like I can't put it into words without just like screaming into the abyss. Like it infuriates me that he was able to get as far as he did, that he was able to do the damage that he did to Rebecca and her family and her loved ones, that he was able to do all these horrible things. And even in one of like the documentaries, he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry because I know what I did. I now realize that what I did was wrong, and blah blah blah." I'm like, no, you don't just like. I don't care if you like are the sorriest person in the world. That doesn't absolve you of the horrible, horrible thing that you did, of the fact that you took someone's life, of the fact that you caused so much pain and sorrow just because you thought that a celebrity who was just because you thought that Rebecca, who was nice enough to respond to you, that you thought she belonged to you. No, nothing you ever do, nothing you ever say will make up for that, will make up for what you did. No, it doesn't. And like just I don't often get about this a lot, but just the fact that he is like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," it just infuriates me to my core. And I, ugh.
Yeah. I don't believe he's sorry at all either. That's the thing. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, because, and, when he went to go purchase a gun, to the credit of the gun shop owner was like, no, there's something about this guy. Mm-mm, and flagged him, even put up a picture of him in the gun store saying, no, do not give this guy a gun. And then for his brother to do that. And then when it was announced on the news that Rebecca had been murdered, his family went to go see if he was home because they suspected that I mean, the fact that they suspected it goes to show you they should have been like, okay, we need to keep an eye on our brother and and our son, because I think it was the mother too. And it's like, it was like red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag, and nobody did anything. And this didn't have to happen. That is
So many failures.
because there
Like
were
he
so
just
many
called
points
his
when he could.
sister, and like, how do you not like immediately after getting that call go, "I need to find him now"?
Yeah, I mean, there were so many points, and he was trying to plead insanity, and that he didn't know what he was doing at the time. It just happened, but I mean, he confessed to everything, and he also, planned ahead with the bullets, with making sure they were the bullets that would do the most damage. So I mean, so he failed in that. I mean, Marsha Clark, of course, was
Say kudos to
prosecutor.
Marsha Clark.
Yeah, I mean, Marsha Clark is actually really amazing
Yeah.
person. I mean, she's amazing. Go watch American Crime Story, the OJ one, because I think it paints a great picture of her, and the way she was treated by the media too is horrible. But yeah, she was amazing with this case as well. And yeah. And like I said, I remember because I watched the sitcom My Sister Sam, and I liked her on that. She started out as a soap actress, and I was a big soap person, and I liked her. I thought she was a good actress, and it was just it was scary. It was really terrifying. I think I was not 4 like Panda, and I wasn't like 5 like Meg. I was Just a little bit older than that.
I was 3
Oh, 3, sorry.
until the next day when I
Until the
turned
next
4.
day.
That
So
was
you and Panda were
Susie was
basically the
like
same age.
negative 10 years. Okay.
I
Yeah.
was a toddler.
I've got you all beat. I was in the ether, just
Susie
floating around.
You weren't even like, yeah.
Susie
Yeah.
was in her previous life.
Yeah.
I did want to mention there is a movie called, I don't know if anyone has seen it, called Moonlight Mile, with Jake Gyllenhaal, Dustin Hoffman, and Susan Sarandon, directed and written by Brad Sieberling, who was the boyfriend of Rebecca Schaefer at the time that she was assassinated. And this is very loosely based on that. It's an amazing, amazing film. I really love this movie. And it is very much about someone, Jake Gyllenhaal's character, dealing with the death of his fiance at the time and other things, and the family of her family. So it's a really, really good movie. I highly recommend it. It was from like 2003 or something like that. So it's an older one, but it's really, really good. I just wanted to mention that movie. Okay. So we're going to move on to Selena, who, oh, wait, sorry, I had my thing pulled up and then I just shut it because I have all my notes for all of these. I apologize. So Selena was killed, assassinated with a gun. This is our first one where it was a woman who did this. This was Yolanda Saldivar, who was the president of the Selena fan club. She also was the manager of the clothing boutique for Selena. And she assassinated Selena on March 31st, 1995. She became a fan in mid 1991, attended one of her concerts. She originally didn't like Selena because Selena was winning awards that her favorite musicians she thought should have won. And then she eventually became a fan. Sorry, my notes all got all funky, so I apologize. So we're going to talk about this one. So, Carla, what are your thoughts on Selena's murder?
This is one of the ones where it's like personal for me. I mean, I think um not just as a Mexican person and not just as a fan of Tejano music, but you know, when it happened, I was young and I was, you know, into the music and I was so looking forward to her English language debut and all of these things and just she was at the start of what was going to be a huge trajectory and she was already a megastar. She was packing audiences um into huge arenas. So talented, so gifted and just so funny and charming. Um and it was an absolute shock to say the least to because you know on top of everything like the Yolanda Saldivar's standoff with the police was televised, so that's one of those things where like you're watching it along and you're you know witnessing all of this and it's horrible, it's terrible, um and it really leaves an impression. But yeah, it's Jonetta Saldívar has maintained her innocence in all of this, saying that that the gun went off by accident, that she didn't mean to shoot Selena, and that you know, like oh, it was just like you know, Selena bumped the door, and then my hand accidentally like hit the trigger, and boom, she's dead, and you know, my bad. But the fact of the matter is, you know, Jonetta Saldívar, the way that she came into Selena's life was so different from like all of these other people that we've talked about because she was actually in her life. She became indispensable to Selena, and Selena was really a champion for her. And you know, not only did she okay her being the president of her fan club and handling like money for that and everything to do with the fan club, but she also made her the manager of her two boutiques. And then her father kept going to Selena and say, "This woman, there's something not right about her," you know. And Selena would constantly, first of all, Jolene Saliba was very manipulative and constantly turned Selena's head and was saying, no, like she had an excuse for everything. And like, no, this is because of this is because of that. And so Selena, because she wanted to believe the best in everybody, constantly believed her. And also, Joanna Saldívar was very good at manipulating her. She knew how to push her buttons. Um, and she was really trying to drive a wedge between Selena and her family to the point where, she was coordinating her schedule and her father had to basically go through Yolanda to get to Selena. And when it started to come out that, like, no, she's not a good person. She's stealing money from you. She stole money from her previous employer. She's doing this. She's doing that. And finally, Selena said, "Wow, okay, now I'm seeing it. She has to go." And even that she gave her a lot of leeway and a lot of courtesy. And Yolanda said to her, I was, you know, sexually assaulted when I was in Mexico. I need help. Selena herself took her to a clinic to get looked at, only to find out that it didn't happen. And then later that day, Yolanda's like, okay, I'm gonna give you all of the financial records and then whatever. And that's when she kills her because like everything was just closing in on her. This was not an accident. This was not, like whatever she says it's, and she's coming in for parole in 2025. And it's just unfathomable that somebody who did all of this can be up for parole. And now, you know, uh, for me, I have a huge problem with um, just the entire justice system is a mess, but also the carceral system is a problem. And I think that there needs to be more done to rehabilitate people than to just put them away for life. I think that there needs to be more done as far as prevention and help as opposed to incarceration, which often does not help society. But there are cases like this where this person is still claiming innocence despite all of the evidence and um, just where that really like pushes my the bounds of my commitment to carceral reform, where it's like this is somebody who did something evil, and all of these people are people who have done something evil. And you know when we talk about quote unquote paying your debt to society, like what does that mean? Have they like actually changed? Are they actually reformed? Is there a barometer by which we can really judge that? And how can we be absolutely certain that they won't just go on to do the same thing? That's what I wonder about this woman. Like this is a person who manipulated and used somebody who cared about her, who got to know her on a personal level, who, like Rebecca Schaefer, extended her heart out to somebody and received the worst kind of blowback from it. Um, and Selena, you know, when we talk about the loss of Selena, she, oh my God, not just because she was poised for, that crossover that everybody wanted for her, but her music had so much heart and so much energy and so much fun and so much love. It's incalculable, the loss. It's absolutely incalculable when you think about the fact that she's been dead for longer than she got to live. It rends my heart every single time that I think about her. I can't. I love her music. I still listen to it. I listen to it with a smile on my face. But there are times when I listen to it and I start to cry because I'm like, oh my God, like what more could she have done? Like how much more could we have um gotten from her as an artist? Or even if she had just decided, what, this isn't for me, and just went on to, I don't know, herd cattle. I don't care. Like this was a human being who deserved to live her life however she wanted to live it in whatever terms she wanted. I always think of, like I would have loved to have seen a collaboration between her and Aaliyah. Like, two people who were taken from us so young and so close in time to each other. But Selena really hurts because this is something that Jonathan Saldívar should never have had access to a firearm, and um, she had access to Selena because of Selena being a good person who cared. And that's such a tragedy. Like I'm not alone in saying that I will never get over it.
Yeah. She never confessed, Panda. She does not take response, says it was an accident, like Carla said. So yeah, she's Meg.
Yeah, this is like the first celebrity death that I really remember hitting me really hard and resonating with me. I Dreaming of You was my favorite album for a long, long time. I mean, I was I was 10 when Selena was killed. I was 11 just about when Dreaming of You came out. It came out a couple months after she had passed away. But I remember hearing on the radio when she died. And they had released singles from the albums by this point, and I already loved her music. And I think about now how posthumously popular she became in America. And I think of what she could have done for Tejano music, for that crossover, had she been allowed to live, had she been able to go on with her career. And it's just so tragic when you think about what was lost, and it's so insidious, and it's so different than the other places, the other people that we talked about, where this person was someone who was close to her, who weaseled their way into her life and manipulated their way into her trust and used that to steal from her, isolate her from her family, and do all these horrible things before then killing her. And it's just, of all the ones we've talked about, this is the one that kind of hits me the hardest, because I adored her so much. And I think, yeah, she was on the precipice of, she's just right there on the precipice of launching into this amazing, like, kind of unheard of crossover career. I mean, there was Gloria Stefan, of course, but Selena was just something else. Like, she was 23. And I think about that. She was 23 years old. She was a baby when she was killed. And I don't know. Like Carla said so much that I don't know if I can add on to that, other than this was one of the first celebrity, like, not deaths, because I remember celebrity deaths before this, but this was like one of the first shocking murders, or like sudden death of a celebrity that I remember. I just remember being on a trampoline and hearing on the radio that Selena was dead. And then they started playing Dreaming of You on the radio. And it's one of those memories that just imprinted on my brain. And it's one of those things that I just get so mad, because, yeah, she never confessed. She never took responsibility. It's disgusting that her standoff with the police was televised, so everyone's watching live as she's sitting there, as if it's entertainment, as if this horrific event was something to be consumed. And it just makes me mad. This is the one of all of them that makes me the angriest. And I think it's because I remember when it happened. It's because it's Selena. Like, she meant a lot to me. I remember just being so excited for her new album, for her English speaking album to come out. And I had been listening to her previous albums, and I was like my little self with my, like, 6th grade Spanish. And it just makes me so angry when I think about it. And I think that she's up for probation in 2025, and she hasn't even taken responsibility for what she did. How could she even be up for probation if she can't even admit and won't even confess to what she did? It was clearly not an accident. I'm sorry. You don't gut shoot someone and then not immediately call 911, because I'm pretty sure she didn't call 911. I'm pretty sure somebody else in the motel called 911 when this happened, after you stole $60,000 and after you've done everything to carve her away from her family. You don't anyway. This I think about all she could have done for music, like all she did for music in the short time that she was here, and all she could have done for music had she not been taken from us. Because it feels, like I said, this is one for me. It feels like it was just a light, just extinguished before it really had a chance to shine as brightly as it could have. So, yeah.
Susie.
So I was not alive at this time.
Okay, you see, Erin, Carla, I get it. I get your annoyance with me every time I say I was 4. I understand. Are you even 23 yet, Susie?
I'm 20.
Were you alive in the 1900s, as my children call it, the 1900s?
Excuse me, I was alive. I came into being in the late 1900s.
That's what my kids are like, Mom, were you around in the late 1900s? And I'm like, yeah. Yeah, I was. Yeah, for a while.
You're like, for a while, yeah, I was just hanging around.
Thanks.
Yeah, but like as a kid, I remember listening to her music and like being so happy that there was, and this is even before, like this was, no one had told me that she had passed. And as a kid, hearing her music and being like, "Oh my God, it's so great to have a Latina artist. Oh, she's so talented and so cool." And like seeing some of her, like seeing some of her outfits and being like, "Oh my God, she was so cool. She had all this great fashion sense and oh look at that." And then getting older and like learn, and like I remember the day that I learned that she, like this, I didn't even know about Yolanda at this point. Just knowing that she had died like gutted me, because I was like I couldn't fathom it, because to me she was such a presence, and like just amazing talent, and I couldn't like wrap my head around the fact that she was gone. And then learning that Yolanda was the one who had killed her, and I like so much rage filled my tiny little kid body that I was so ready to hitchhike down to the jail where she was at and just go to town. Like I like the fury that filled baby Susie was immense. It's like I was ready to rain hell upon this woman. I still am. Like the thing, like I think more about Selena more than any other artist that has passed, because like she was just like she was so great. She was so talented, and it wasn't even about like the music either. It's like from she was this great person, and she wanted to start a family. She was ready to start a family at the time, and she wanted to like launch her fashion brand, like go more mainstream with it, and design more for it. And she was getting into like the English market of songs, like her American debut. And like I think about like all the great things that she could have done if it wasn't for fucking Yolanda. Like she was killed. Like yes, the other people that we have talked about were killed by fans, but it wasn't the fact that she was killed by just a fan. She was killed by someone that she knew, someone that she trusted, someone that she treated as a friend. Like there are accounts of her like being Yolanda's friend and giving her gifts and trying to make her feel welcome and loved. And Yolanda, this freaking con woman, just like weaseling her way into Selena's lives. And there were even accounts of her trying to like harm her before. And you like even then, like like she was like Selena was such a light. How could you? It it's like she never took responsibility for it, and she like kept lying and manipulating even when she was confronted. And Selena just wanted to see the best in her and just wanted to like help her. Like, oh, you say you were you were sexually assaulted. Well, let's get you help. Let's see what we can do. I want to help you through this, and like taking her to clinics and being there for her and supporting her. And Yolanda just lying through her teeth, and even now she's still lying and says, I didn't do it, I didn't do anything. Like it's just it like again, like with Rebecca Schaefer, like Selena could have done so much good. Like it would have been great. Like what we were able to get with Selena was awesome, but we could have gotten like so much more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's so tough with, especially when they're young, because it's not, you're not just mourning what we had, we're mourning
What could have been,
what
and
could have been.
she was. I remember when I turned 23, like it it hit me. I was like, Selena was my age when she died, and I was still a fucking baby. Like a year ago, I was still like I still am a child.
And
I'm
so
not
you're
fully
still
prepared.
a baby.
I'm not fully prepared for adult things. I still need hugs once in a while, and it it just it infuriates me. Like she had like such a bright future ahead of her, and she was on the road to doing so many great things, and because of this perra, she can't. Like she won't be able to, and because of one monster's selfish greed, she just took away someone's wife, someone's daughter, someone's people's family. And to have the gall to still deny it, that makes you lower than any like any species of any that makes you lower than shit. Like to just lie to people's faces still.
Yeah,
And it just how could you? How could you? How can you wake up in the morning and still and then, even look yourself in the mirror? How
well,
how? It
okay.
just
I think what makes it so much more messed up and so much more infuriating is you look at the other cases we talked about, there are very clearly mental health issues that are at play with all of these other killings. And this was just greed. This was just malice and greed and just awfulness. And that's what they're all senseless. All of these attempts or murders were senseless. Every single one of them. But this one hits a little different because it was just she just stole and she didn't want to get caught, and it's just and that was worth a life. That was worth killing someone. $60,000 was worth killing somebody over, like killing your friend, killing someone that you claim to adore and you love. And even if it was an accident, which it absolutely was not,
it was not.
It
there are
absolutely
accounts that she chased her screaming
was
bitch.
not.
That's not that wasn't
Yeah.
an accidental firing. No, there was
No.
clear intent.
If it's an accident, then you call 911 immediately. You do everything you can to try and help somebody. You don't chase after them. And why does she even have a gun at the hotel? Like Panda said, why do you even have the gun? Why do you do it? This one makes me angrier than all of the others, and I'm just gonna be mad so I don't cry.
Yeah, well, I don't have much to add, also because of time wise. But thank you all for sharing that. I mean, I do think this it's I don't want to say worse, but there's a different level of broken trust here too. It's not just a fan; it's a broken trust of someone that you cared about doing this to you more than just a fan that you have no real relationship with. This is, I think, goes deeper. I'm not saying it's worse necessarily. It's just a different level of hurt and betrayal and disgusting, awful, horrible things. I do think the movie Selena is pretty good. I think Jennifer Lopez did a fantastic job in that. So just pointing that out. So if you want to go see that. So because of time, we're not going to mention anymore, really, because it's just I should really learn to learn my lesson. I thought this outline we were not going to be this long, honestly, and should have divided this into like 2 episodes because yeah, I will just briefly mention there are some ones where fans don't actually pull off what they're trying to do. The most disturbing one is Ricardo Lopez, who on September 12th, 1996, he mailed a letter to Bjork with a bomb rigged with sulfuric acid. And then he returned home and filmed himself killing himself. And his thought was she would die and they would be joined together in the afterlife. Luckily, thankfully, when his body was found, they watched the videotapes and they alerted the London police and it was intercepted, so she wasn't killed. Yeah, and then you can also look up Spielberg stalker Jonathan Norman, who just go look that up. I won't go into that, but that was wow. So yeah, so there's a lot out there. So, but I hope this episode also hopefully served as a way for the regular fans out there to not feel so bad about the way you are as a fan, because this is totally different. And also maybe it'll serve as you also know as a reminder that celebrities are human beings. These people are human beings. We do not own them. It does not matter what you think. Do not go up to them when they're in the bathroom. Do not go up to them when they're eating. Show some respect, some privacy. Just because they're celebrities does not mean that they have to give away all of their rights, because that's just not the case. They just went to do something that they love. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and wrap up, though. So sorry, but we can't mention anymore because this is going way much longer than I thought it would. So I'm going to go around and have everybody say where they can be found and their podcast. Carla.
Meg and I can be found at our podcast, Bedwet or Behead, on any podcast site. Look for Bedwet or Behead podcast. You can find us on Twitter at bedwedbeheadpod, on Instagram at bed.wet.behead.pod, on stuff with blue logos. Look for Bedwet or Behead podcast. You can find me and my photography at Carla Temis. My website is carlatemis.com. That's CARLATEMIS. And a reminder that also taking surreptitious pictures of celebrities is not respectful either.
Amen. Oh, that stuff skeezes me out when you see something like that posted. So Meg.
So we are not yet, Carl and I are not yet in the metaverse. Sorry, guys. There's no Matrix Bedwood Behead yet. You can find me on the Twitter at Wisconsinac. Just WISCONSENNACH. And that's it.
Thank you.
Womp womp.
And Susie.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at SusieQ_SC, and there's an additional underscore for Instagram, and my daga's Instagram, if you want something light after such heavy topics, is at Benny_Pelucita. So yeah, go look at cute puppy pictures and let your worries just float away for a minute.
Yeah, we could all use that. And this is Erin. You can follow me on Twitter at eAprilBeauty. The E and the A and the B are capitalized. Be sure to like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/itsafandom_thing_pod. On Twitter at fandomthingpod. No, it's in that one. On Instagram at itsafandom_thing_pod. On TikTok at itsafandom_thing_pod. If you would like to be a potential interview guest, please feel free to reach out to us at itsafandom_thing_pod@gmail.com. And for our live stream viewers, our episode dropping Wednesday is another heavy one. I spoke to Herb Stern, who has written a novel called Sins of the Fathers, which is his sequel to Wolf, which this follows. There were some German soldiers that people don't really know about that they also were the same ones that attempted to assassinate Hitler. But they attempted beforehand to stop him. And a lot of people don't talk about this. And this is a fiction because the main character is fictionalized, but most of the characters in here are real. This is based on reality. And this is all before World War II. You also, I think, why this book is so dang important is because this is a very different telling of Hitler than you will get from other historians because, well, you see that Hitler was a human being, which makes him more dangerous. And I think the reason people don't like to show that side of Hitler as like a person who, like actually like did stuff that there were people that were around him that were like, oh, he was such a nice, polite guy, blah, 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 which is not an excuse for anything he did. I'm just saying the reason that's important is I think people like to just say, well, Hitler was so evil because his acts were evil. So if you say that, it excuses away and makes you think that there's nobody else that could be like Hitler, which is BS. And also a lot of stuff in this novel, as we mentioned, and as the author said, Putin is basically following the playbook of Hitler. So if you think that that can't happen again, think again. It starts with smaller steps. So it doesn't start fascism just doesn't just happen like in 2 seconds. Atrocities like this, the Holocaust doesn't just happen overnight. There's build up to it. And that's why I think these novels are important and are important to talk about today with what's going on. So sorry, I was talking a little longer there, but I just am really impassioned about the fact that this is something that isn't taught in history. So it's the truth of it. And, it wasn't just Jewish people that the Nazis were after. So also that's a big thing to keep in mind. So it's a very interesting interview. So I highly recommend keeping an eye out for that. And his co-author, sadly, Alan Winter, who couldn't be on, but it was still a good conversation. But next week, we are going to have another author interview, and then we're going to lighten things up. I promise it'll be a little lighter. We're going to be talking about actors taking on comedic roles who are generally dramatic actors and vice versa. So we'll be talking, I'm sure, about certain comedic actors becoming dramatic actors. So that'll be like light and fluffy, I promise. And then also just another thing for the live stream, just a quick good night, Panda. Thank you so much for joining us and sticking with us so long. Thank you. Appreciate it. And just another quick reminder, of course, it's not easy watching either. This is heavy watching too. But tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time, please head on over to Finn Whitrock Source on Instagram and join them for their watch party of A Mouthful of Air. But please remember trigger warnings for that, for suicidal ideation, for anxiety, depression. So yes, that's not an easy watch, but it's a really good movie. I think it's an important one. So that, and then also keep it on your calendar. March 26th, Erin has decided that it's a month from now that she has decided she wants to do a live stream for 12 hours. That means I would be doing this for another 9 hours. I do not know what I am thinking, but I am doing this. I'm going to have a lot of other podcasts on. We're going to be doing a movie review.
Not me. No.
We are going to do an episode, even if it means, sadly, that Meg can't be on one of them. I have to record one of the episodes during that because it'll just be too hard on me. We're going to be doing a movie review of, speaking of Finn Whitrock, of Deep Water, the erotic Disney thriller. Ben Affleck. Sorry, it's the Disney erotic thriller. That is the funnest part to say, but we're gonna do. I think we're all a little punchy right now. Disney's erotic thriller.
Just wait until they turn it into a ride.
Oh God.
Sign me
Are
up.
you ready to dip your toes in the deep waters? That's what you'll hear going in.
But it is directed by Adrian Lin, who hasn't done a movie in forever, and he does a lot of movies in this sort of brain. So I'm excited for this one. Let me tell you. I think we're a little too punchy right now. So, and once again, check our show notes for that Google Doc. I'm going to have it on social media. I'll probably be posting it later tonight for our live viewers, and for people listening, this will be a pinned tweet and pinned on Facebook. Share it on Instagram eventually as well. You'll be able to find it in our link tree eventually too, of places to donate, ways to help for Ukraine and LGBTQIA plus as well, especially and if you know any organizations and organizations especially in Texas and Florida, that maybe are lesser known, please let me know and I will add them to the list, as long as you know they're reputable and they're not like some skeezy organization. Please let me know. I'll add them to there. So thank you so much, and thank you for hanging out with us on this very, very, very heavy episode. I know it's a heavy week, heavy time, heavy years. So it's not just this week. So please try and take care of yourself and each other. I know this sounds trite and cheesy, but please do that. So thank you for listening. And till next time, remember, it's a fandom thing. Black Lives Matter, and stop Asian hate. And thank you to anyone who's sticking with us. I know we had viewers coming in and out throughout, so thank you so much. I am a ray of fucking sunshine. Okay, now I just read Susie's. So good night, everybody. Thank you so much. Good night.